I hate to say it, I'm almost afraid to bring it up. But if you've been watching Brad Stine Has Issues over time, you understand that we are in desperate need of a producer, director, editor, and someone who can functionally allow this podcast to go out into the atmosphere at the highest quality. Unfortunately, I'm stuck with Wyatt. Now, that's okay. He's my son. He's my sidekick. He did, in fact, exude from my loins. So we have a connection spiritually, emotionally, physically. But we made a huge gamble. We threw a giant block of dice. That's right, folks. Even with all of the issues, today we get to introduce a brand new button for Wyatt. And he can't wait.
How would you like this button?
I told you, he cannot wait.
This may be my new favorite button.
Oh, Lord.
Because now I can just be talking and that... Oh, but wait, I'm back now.
We are.
And I'm going to have fun with this one.
Folks, I am so sorry. The best thing I can offer you is the song to get us rolling. Hello. This is Brad Stine, or as the New Yorker called me, God's Comic. And this is Brad Stine Has Issues, another Facebook, YouTube Live podcast. This is where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. It's a special edition, Brad Stine Has Issues. I just returned from Sacramento, California. So that's right, I have to get a little bit of the California crazy off of me. But the good news is up in north of Sacramento, south of Sacramento, and many places in between, it's a good old-fashioned, God-fearing, conservative Americans who are trapped like rats in California. But I'm here now. I'm back. I'm excited to be with you guys, and I'd love to introduce, for anybody who is out there who's brand new to Brad Stine Has Issues, I'd love to introduce my sidekick and my son of all sons, Wyatt Leroy Stine. Wyatt, are you out there?
I press buttons. This is my life. I have a new button now.
Now tell us, son, if you would, about your new button, because for those of us who've been watching Brad Stine Has Issues for any length of time, they're in fear and trembling. Many of them who didn't used to bite their nails are doing it right now. Many of them have already got them down to the nub. Some are in rehab. Some people are drinking as we speak, only because, well, dang it, Wyatt, you got a brand new button, and they fear it because they know with the buttons you used to have, it was nothing but pure chaos. I mean, chaos distilled to its foundation. I mean, if you looked up chaos in the dictionary, it'd be you and your buttons. So tell us, son, why in the world would we add a button?
Because you didn't stop me.
Now, was the button your idea?
Technically, no. It was the idea of Jared, who runs our social.
Yeah.
So I explained to him that we had a problem where whenever my microphone's on, it sounds like a TV slowly dying.
Ooh.
So to fix that, I usually have to go over to our mixer and press the mute button on my microphone, so that you, audience at home, don't want to just mute the audio and just watch this as a vaudeville act.
Right.
Now, that's not easy when the mixer is very far away from you compared to the microphone.
15 feet, 20 feet away?
No, more like 3.
3 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Let's see you get 3 feet away from that microphone and see how you sound.
Hey, I'm over here at 3 foot distance.
Oh, that is barely a foot and a half. Come on.
Well, listen,
If you're still on camera, you ain't far enough.
Hey, it's me, God's Comic, Brad Stine, and I'm way over here. Am I even in the shot?
Yes.
And how do I sound?
Like you're yelling. That's cheating.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This would be better if I talk like this. This would be a true representation of the hell and the angst that you've been enduring all these years because you had to go 3 feet?
What's that? Speak up. I can't hear you.
That's what I thought. All right, so you're saying that 3 feet away was the sound mixer? What was it called?
It's just the mixer. It's the thing that takes our audio and feeds it to our computer in a language it can understand.
Okay, and what language is that? Latin, Aramaic, Greek?
Beep boop.
Beep boop. Okay.
Yes, beep boop.
Okay, that would be robotic talkage?
Binary, also known as its local term, beep boop.
Okay, so you got a brand new, localized, right in front of your dang face, little mute and unmute button, and you are just giddy. Am I right?
This thing will last maybe a month, because I will keep pressing it.
In other words, you're going to wear the crap out of that thing.
I'm going to get my money's worth. I have a spare, so if this one dies, I'm just plugging in part 2.
Yeah, well, guess what? You didn't pay for this, son. The people out there in donor land paid for it. Donor land. And you know what? If you don't know what that means, this entire studio, this mic, everything that is here was through donations of people that believed for some dang reason I needed to be on television or on a podcast or something similar as a means to speak about things that I speak about. And they donated it. So if you would like to participate, that we're going to tell you how to do it. But the quickest, easiest way, of course, is when you renew your driver's license. Just check the box that says, yes, I am a donor. And that's will immediately send lots of opportunities for me to be able to continue this podcast. No, it won't be money. It'll be your spleen.
Well, yeah, you need to make sure that you're getting the donor thing with the heart on it, because that means that you love the podcast.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so here's the deal. I love donors because they're the ones that have allowed this to happen. Because Wyatt, how much have I paid myself for the 2 years I've been on?
Oh, jeez, you keep saying it, and you'd think by now I'd remember it. Let me see. What is $500?
No.
No?
A little less.
Ah, dang it. Yeah. Okay, what is $100?
You know, I'm believing it, a little less.
Less than that? Okay, audience, I'm going to need some help here. Anyone in the comments, give me a number, any number. Okay. Okay, that one's wrong.
How about, and this is a technical term, zippity-doo-dah?
Zippity-a?
Yeah.
Oh,
my, how I wish I was paid. But I'm not. But it doesn't matter because here's the deal, guys. You are my people, and because of that, this is a special edition of Stine Has Issues. It's going to be just like the other ones. But normally, son, what we do is we sit and we decide, hey, look who's here first, and it's Nick.
It's Nick Kress, or whoever you decide to be the guest appearance for first base.
Marsha Pointer, Benjamin Gregory, Karen Boyd, Marie.
Oh yes, of course. The person with like so many letters in their name that you can't even pronounce them all.
Can't pronounce them all. But we have lots of folks. They're out there. They love us and they show up. And I normally we talk about them. I talk about them. They make little pithy comments and we speak about it. We take the pith out of them. And try to find some funny. They get to be engaged. But today, I'm not doing that, son. Why am I not? It's sitting here. I'm watching the people, but why am I not commenting about that, son?
Because you have nothing good to say, and we have a lot of stuff to cover today.
Oh, my Lord, do we have a lot of stuff to cover. But no, I have things to say.
Okay, then say them then.
Well, I was going to say thank you for all you folks that showed up, like, Benjamin and Karen and Nick and... Tom and everybody and Aaron.
Well, you see, the thing what we're doing here is everybody can read comments and comment on them, but we know you so well that we don't even have to read your comments to know how to answer.
Hey, I didn't look. I don't know who's out there. I'm just throwing out because I know my people. I do want to do a special shout out to Danny Herring. You know where she's from, by the way?
Canada.
Yeah. And
wait, seriously?
Oh, yeah, she's the Canadian.
Finally, I got the Canadian.
Isn't that neat? She will be sending us a case of maple syrup right out of Canada because we bring her up and we are so grateful for her. Now, again, she'll have to sneak it out of the bunker. She's got 3 to 4 ARs fully loaded with high-capacity mags. She is doing her best to jerk whatever meat she can grab. She's under the deep tongs of Trudeau. I call them the tongs of Trudeau.
Moose jerky.
Yeah, it's too bad that you didn't have your mic on when you said that.
Okay, listen. I got a new button. We all knew there'd be issues. All I said was moose jerky. It's not the end of the world if the audience doesn't hear that joke.
What I'm so grateful, though, is that the issues that we've had some funny banter, and it's endearing, folks. It's endearing that you got a couple idiots trying to run a podcast. But to find out that the issues essentially stemmed from you, son, and your incompetence makes me feel better about myself.
Well, to be fair, what do you do on this podcast except stand in front of a camera and look pretty?
I wish I was standing. I'm sitting, and I don't need to look pretty, son. I think it's just self-evident.
Okay, my point stands, though. If I were to just disappear off the face of the earth,
yes,
this podcast goes with me.
Oh, that's
if you disappear off the face of the earth, I turn this into a puppet show.
Nice!
Sock puppet show.
Oh, my Lord. You know what? For people who...
And guess what? No one would tell the difference.
So they're saying that my insight, my raconteur skill set is the equivalent of a sock puppet show on a podcast where you can only hear the action.
Yeah, I mean, either that or I'll just have an AI do all the script for you.
Okay, well, that's coming. And it would make things easier for me. And you know what? It gets paid the same.
You know what? I'm curious if we should do a podcast where the script is just entirely AI generated, just to see how long it takes the audience to realize. And if the answer is more than a few minutes, I will be concerned.
Listen, AI is going to take over the world, son. So that don't be surprised when that becomes a reality that people get to pull off.
I'm not surprised that it's going to come. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. Come on, let's speed this up.
Yes.
I thought climate change was supposed to kill us all. Where's that? And now AI is going to kill us? If this is anything like that, it's going to be 50 years of us spouting, oh, it's going to be the end of existence, and nothing's going to happen. There are still oysters in the ocean. The sea manatees are fine. I think. I don't really check in on them. Are they fine?
Here's what you've neglected to realize, son. The AI would have taken over by now, but it's been hindered by one and only one event.
Canada.
Climate change. Same thing.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Today's special podcast, and it's similar to the other one, but again, we always interact with our people. We're so grateful that they show up, and we feel so sorry for them that that's all they have to do on our money. But nevertheless, here we sit. And I did want to make this a special session that I do every 4 or 5 weeks. And that is, instead of just sort of talking about the people that show up, and I'm grateful for them, I want to be celebrating, shout out to those who actually do put real dollars out of their real pockets into the real donating to help this podcast exist and grow, and it's growing, and potentially is going to get much bigger than we had anticipated. So this little moment is just me sort of saying thank you, a little shout out, and the next donor that's coming in, and it couldn't be more ironic. Why? It's Nick Kress. Nick has sent some dough.
Saint Nick himself?
Saint Nick sends dough. This guy is a very, very altruistic guy, and he's very generous and has helped us on numerous occasions in many ways. But he's not alone. There's Daniel Graff. He shows up every single month giving. Now, do you ever see Daniel Graff on the thread?
No.
Yes, and yet he gives. Marshall Pyle gives every dang month. Do you ever see Marshall on the thread?
No.
Matthew Holder, constantly giving. Can't wait to give. Loves what we do and loves to believe in it. Son, when was the last time you talked to Matthew Holder?
Who?
Yeah. Carrie Hathaway, always giving, always generous to a fault. Tell me about Carrie Hathaway and your experiences.
Oh, well, every single week I'm always like, man, that Karen is... I'm sorry, what was her name again?
Yeah, it was Carrie Hathaway. Not
Carrie Hathaway, yes, of course. Oh, good old Carrie from good old state.
Mm-hmm. Wyatt, she's an incredible donor. Guess who else is incredible? James Holman, always giving, always taking, always happy. Rebecca Blanton, can't show up fast enough, can't give. John McCoy, giving. Glenda Hanway, And why? This is interesting. On the last day of January, we got an incredible, nice little donation from John McCoy. And then 9 days later, February 9th, he did it again. This guy is a giver. Thank you, John McCoy, Glenda Hanway, John McCoy again. Rebecca Blanton, thanks. James Holman, thank you. Carrie Hathaway, thanks. Matthew Holder, Marshall Ball, Danny Grant, and of course, Saint Nick, thank you, my friend, for always being there for us and for giving until your wallet bleeds. Wyatt, when's the last time your wallet bled?
Well, once the pewter died off the cow.
That's right. That's a good point. Listen, folks, I want to sort of launch this particular episode into some fun. And here's why. You got to understand something that, as you know, I am really leaning towards the podcast moving into the proactive warriorship, the militia of the mind that we are creating to defend America's values and virtues and religious liberties and free speech. That's what this is about. It's about trying to actually mobilize citizens to be able to actually do things that actually change things, as opposed to just talking about conservatives or this and Christians or that and leftists or this and progressives or that. That gets a lot of clicks and even makes money. But if you're trying to actually change things and hope that people that are participating volunteer to get out into the marketplace and risk whatever's necessary to defend freedom, well, that's going to be a little bit harder to find folks that do that. But those who jump in and do that are true warriors, and they are going to make a change because you're the government of the United States. So I wanted to ask you, as I started doing 2 weeks ago and will be a regular segment, where were you a warrior this week? Was there a moment of free speech that was stolen from you or tried to be stolen? You know what? You shouldn't say that. It's politically incorrect. And what have I taught you? If someone says you're politically incorrect, you say, what do you say, Wyatt?
Thank you.
Yes. And why do we say thank you?
Because it's a compliment.
And why is it a compliment?
Is you do not want to be politically correct.
Because?
Well, because I didn't study for this part. I didn't know there'd be a test, okay?
Stumped the button boy. All right.
To be fair, I'm the button boy, not the question master.
No, for sure. No, the reason that we want to say thank you is because it's a compliment. It's a compliment because to be politically correct is to have willingly chosen to supplant your freedom and your free speech to cultural Marxism. Marxism is tyranny from a Marxist atheistic undergirding of totalitarianism that demands you succumb to the state and worship it as the religion that it is. If you are a leftist and you are watching it, you are part of a very cultic religion, and you can't get out of it. You don't want to get out of it, but you sure want to make sure everybody else is destroyed so you can remain power, and then tell yourself, wasn't I good? No, you weren't. You were evil. And I simply call it out because once I don't exist, they'll either have me killed or the podcast will be removed because of censorship. But this exists forever, anything I take. So you're going to remember that I called you out on it. Why? Because when I die, I stand in front of the living God. And he says, well done, good and faithful servant. Not because I'm not. But God forgave me because of Jesus. So I'm taking advantage of that. Why I'm taking advantage of the get out of hell free card that Jesus offered his son. Have you ever jumped into that?
Yeah, I did, actually.
Explain to me why.
Well, it just seemed like the logically best option to do.
So you believe in Jesus based on logic?
Yeah.
Interesting. Was there any particular argument that was most compelling to you?
That's a good one. I've read books about the logical aspects of it.
Anything stand out? Any authors?
That's the thing. It's like when I read it, it made sense, and I'm like, that's cool. But in the spotlight right now, I cannot really remember any specific arguments. But I will say, it never really made sense to me that people live their entire lives believing that there was no objective point to it, and then make the argument, well, that's because I give it meaning.
Right. And why can't you give something meaning and it actually has meaning?
Because there's nothing objective about a personal meaning that's different than everyone else's meaning.
Exactly. So it's subjective, and meaning must be immutable and transcendent for it to actually exist. Otherwise, it's simply your preference, your taste, your desires, but it does not have an absolute truth by which one can undergird their moral and virtuous and character perspective of life. Does that sum it up, son? Because clearly you don't know what you're referencing, and so I'm going to have to
I think I explained that pretty well.
You did, but I had to kind of bail you out because you did stumble a bit.
Well, yeah, but that's because I don't really spend every waking moment of my life thinking of how I'm going to word that in a debate, because I typically don't get in debates.
And that's because you work at?
Lowe's.
And Lowe's doesn't have a lot of intellectual stimulus?
You know, surprisingly, we ran out of it a few weeks ago.
Really? What aisle was it on?
Oh, you had to buy it online, pal. We don't stock that in stores.
That's what I'm talking about. That's my son, always one step ahead of the competition. Speaking of competition, I wanted to ask you guys if you were out there doing the work. I told you that the work means you're actually going to have to begin to stand for something. You know what? There's something that we're going to discuss here in just a moment, because we have a very special guest today that you're going to enjoy, and especially if you are a purveyor and a consumer of faith-based films. We're having an actor on today who is a faith-based film actor, and you've seen him, and he's been in a couple that are fairly well known. And so we're going to talk about that. One of the films that this gentleman was in was called Courageous. It's one of the Kendrick brothers films, and if you saw that, did well in theaters, you will recognize him. And we'll be talking about that here in just a little bit when he comes up. But here's the deal. Courageous is the name of one of the films he was in. Him and I, by the way, were in a film together called Rumors of Wars. That was one that we did together. He's also now a producer with the Michael Knowles show on Daily Wire. So he's quite a talented guy, and thank God he's not responsible for buttons, so he's able to make himself look as though he has, you know, the acumen to do what's necessary, as opposed to Wyatt, who stumbles and fumbles and falls.
Yeah, like you stumbled that entire sentence?
Well, I did, but I did that to show my humbleness and that I'm just a regular guy. I wanted it to be relatable to the people.
Relatable to the people, as in me and me alone, because nobody else here was fumbling like that.
Well, let me ask you this about fumbling. So when I ask my folks out there, my people, my fans, I guess, or maybe just watchers, who knows, maybe you're stumbling on this podcast for the first time and you're wondering, when do they get to the good parts? Well, here's the deal.
Unfortunately, this is the good part.
I know it. You don't bury the lead, son. So here's the deal. I want you to understand that to be a warrior, to be part of the militia of the mind, and this, of course, is always going to be being able to sort of tally that together when we have actual functional ways for me to help you know how to go into the war in your community, is when you join the Mighty 10,000. And these are going to be the first 10,000 people of Americans who raise their hand and say, I'd like to be part of this community. It's $3 a month, and you can pre-subscribe if you say, boy, I'd love to be part of that. $3 a month, what do I get? Well, what you get is special content. There's certain material out there that I have recorded that I've never broadcast. There's going to be comedy opportunities. There's going to be backstage me at shows and so forth that I'm going to film, and only you will have access to that. I'm going to, at certain levels of folks who want to be part of this, even offer things like shout-outs. For example, for a certain level of a gift, I will do a personal shout-out to a friend or family member about happy birthday or whatever. So this is just a way for you to be part of a community, but help this way of us telling the story. And it is going to allow me to go out and to do live events where, if I'm in a church or a conservative and or pro-life ministry or charity that doesn't have a lot of money, I can do it for free because it's going to come out of people's donating, so I can help them get something that they need. So that's really where this is going. That's what the Mighty 10,000 will be. Those who sign up, all you have to do is go to bradstine.com, just go to the contact, fill out your email, your name, and your city, and then just put a little slash and say Mighty 10,000. That means you want to join in. And as soon as the subscription thing is ready and safe and secure, We will simply email you and say, jump in, and you will be one of the mighty 10,000. There will be 10,001 eventually, and hopefully 100,000, maybe 1,000,000 of Americans deciding to fight together as one. But the mighty 10,000 will be only the first mighty 10,000. Nobody else will ever be able to claim that category. So hopefully that'll be interesting to you. But part of that warriorship, part of that means of us having a community so we can encourage each other to be strong and to find ways to defend each other. Part of what I'm trying to put together, I'll see if we can do it, is attorneys, believe it or not, who will work pro bono off of our ability to have this sort of donor pot that will protect people's religious liberties if they are tried to be fired or in any ways they lose their job or they lose their anything within school or whatever, that they can be represented. I'm going to try to partner with groups that will provide these things for you. I really am serious about going to war to defend America. It's a militia. The Second Amendment guaranteed us we have a right to the militia. I'm calling it the militia of the mind because clearly the Augustinian position of just war theory says that everything about war is because the city of man is living in a broken world. And so sometimes, unfortunately, war is necessary not to claim power, not to advance an agenda, not to steal land, not to take in booty, but just war means that you are simply returning the balance that God would have expected from the beginning and bringing peace. The purpose of war is because some people want to destroy peace, and we're trying to restore it. And unfortunately, in this world, sometimes it means conflict. But I say start with our minds. Let's outthink these people. Let's out-passion these people. Let's out-commit to these people. But what does it look like? What does it look like? What is going to drive this? Are we supposed to get angry because there's some people out there that are clickbait-ish groups that hate and mock and ridicule their enemy, and we all laugh and we get on board and we say ha ha ha. Doesn't accomplish anything, doesn't fix anything, but it does perpetuate this idea that to be uncivil and to be unkind to folks is somehow the way to live. The left does that, and they do it very well. I don't want to be a leftist. I don't want to be associated with, because it's cancer. It's evil, and I'm a Christ follower, so I am beholden to love my enemy, pray for those despitefully use me. So I want to give you a quick, interesting note that was part of the Augustinian look at just war theory, and it is, how do we go to war? Now, this is referencing, of course, actual military war, where we have to take up arms because it's existential threat, it's life-threatening. But this philosophical war in America is life-threatening, too. The moment I can't be free to speak or talk or have a difference of opinion, then I have lost my freedom, and I'm enslaved. So that is something that one needs to go to war with, unless you're a coward. Unless you're a coward. So here's what he said, and I want you to think about this. The idea, as important as the idea of justice and order are to Augustine, there would be no such thing as an Augustinism without the virtue of love. It's the chief Christian virtue. We're stuck if you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you don't have to worry about that. For us Christians, we're stuck with having to love our enemies, pray for those who despitefully use us. This was why this war is so difficult for us. They can hate us, they can shoot us, they can riot against us, they can have us canceled, they can steal our jobs, they can besmirch us. Nothing's going to happen to them as long as the left is running the FBI, running the executive branch, running the legislative branch, as long as the left is controlling the corporations now and the dissemination of information, they will never punish their own. Why would they? They want to control us and destroy your ability to free. As a Christian, I can defend that, but I can't hate. That sucks! But it's what it means to be a Christian. So let me tell you something that's interesting. The scriptures themselves contain almost nothing in the way of an explicit specification of what counts as a just war. So as important as the ideas of justice and order are to the Augustine, or Augustine, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, there would be no such thing as Augustinism without the virtue of love. It is the chief Christian virtue, inasmuch as it manifests in the creation, the incarnation, the atonement, and the resurrection, thereby permeating the whole of the Old and New Testament. So I want to read something that he said, that Augustine said. Properly directed love is the essence of virtue itself. Properly directed love is the essence of virtue itself. I hold virtue to be nothing else than the perfect love of God. Even virtue pursued for its own sake is vicious. Even virtue pursued for its own sake is vicious. True virtue has and only can have the love of God as its object. Hence, there can be no virtue in the pursuit of the traditional warrior virtues like honor, valor, patriotism, self-sacrifice, devotion to duty. Okay? Devotion to the common good. Okay? All of those traditional warrior virtues, I'll say them again, these are warrior virtues: honor, valor, patriotism, self-sacrifice, devotion to duty, devotion to the common good, for their own sakes. Because there is no virtue in the pursuit of the traditional warrior virtues for their own sakes, because to do so focuses on the wrong object. Augustine goes so far as to redefine the four cardinal virtues of antiquity in terms of love. He talks about temperance as love giving itself entirely to that which is loved. Fortitude is love readily bearing all things for the sake of the loved object. Justice is love serving only the loved object, and therefore ruling rightly. And prudence is love distinguishing with sagacity between what hinders it and what helps it. So even as we go forward and pursue the militia of the mind and become the mighty 10,000, so that we can be part of this nation and fight back by drawing a line in the sand and saying, no more. We will demand virtue. We will demand discipline. We will demand self-sacrifice. We will demand patriotism. Remember, there is a difference now between citizens of the United States and Americans. All Americans are citizens. Not all citizens are Americans. Citizens are people who bask in the grace and the glory of the freedom and the capitalist system given to them, and yet they disparage it, they despise it, they fight against it, and they hate people whose very lineage, Christian lineage, conservative lineage, gave us this nation. They despise it. They want to destroy it, but they think the virtues and the beauty and the power and the freedom of America will sustain itself even when they ain't there. Well, when the Judeo-Christian virtues aren't there, well, it's not going to happen, because that's what God is there. So we need to understand that. Why are we fighting for these things? Because America is the greatest thing that ever was? No. Is America the greatest nation as far as what it offered all of humanity in human history based on all the great civilizations? Yeah, it's the greatest, for sure. People aren't better than Canadians. We're not better than Australians. We're not better than even the Chinese. Great people in all these places. But nobody ever had an American dream but us. Nobody ever had the American ingenuity. Nobody else left and fled their countries on boats, dying, to try to get to a country because they felt like to be free, to have dignity to their free agency. America created that thing. I didn't do it. People above me, ahead of me, and more courageous than me did it. I also get to bask in that luxury. But an American is grateful for it, remembers it, and teaches it. Does that mean I don't want to teach the true history of America? No, that's a lie. Part of being a warrior. Speak about lies. You don't want to teach the history of America. No, I do. Teach anything that is true history of America. You don't get to make it up. You don't get to get rid of that which is true, and you don't get to falsify things that you want to be true. That is a virtue that must be stood for. Absolute truth. And if there are some historical elements of America that were not pretty, and there's lots, that is not being taught, teach it. I don't fear history. I despise false history designed to control. That I'm not going to stand for. And that's what I need you guys to fight for with me. So that's what we're going to do as the Mighty 10,000 and as the Militia of the Mind. So you can see that I'm watching, let God try to ruminate in me how this is going to go deeper and deeper and deeper. But I can't talk to you about being a warrior if I'm not going to stand up and do it myself. And so I have a clip of a comedy routine that I did a while back, and it's just quick, but I want to show you what I talked about, because it's a dangerous minefield now to be on, is to talk about anything that deals with our gender, with male and female. These 7, 8, 9, 10,000 years of human history that every civilization, every tribe, every town, every city, every human on earth knew there was male and women. That's all there was. There were people that had physical changes and difficulties and anomalies that happened, and we always tried to fix that, to reverse them, to get them to one of the two binary truths, which is male-female. That's all there is. But now people want to say, I can't talk that. Well, I'm going to talk it, or I'm not being courageous, and more importantly, I'm diminishing the truth, and I'm abandoning the truth or reality for a lie to make people comfortable. I do not want to make you comfortable. I want to make you free. So Wyatt, if you would, show them a quick clip of what I said one time that showed how you can be courageous. And in my case, as a comic, try to find some funny in it, but also some truth. Wyatt, hit it.
God made us the way. I believe in God. I believe he actually made people, created people exactly the way he wanted. Men and women, different, similar, but not the same. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be. We need each other to make more. We need each other to make more. Need each other. You want proof that it's supposed to be that way? Every human being that tells me that there's no such thing as a man and a woman was created by a man and a woman. Without us, you wouldn't be here to tell us we're not here. Seem illogical? Yes. You know why? Because it is. Do you know of all the religions that have ever existed, only one had God come to man and say, come, let us reason together. Christianity and the Judeo-Christian ethic is the single most unique, fantastic, miraculous, unheard of, one-of-a-kind philosophy and belief system in human history. You know why? Because it's true. Hey, clap while it's legal. Laugh while it's legal, brother. Laugh while it's legal. Be ready while it's legal.
So, I think what you saw there was, now again, I have a platform different than you guys, right? I have a comedy stage that I can speak these things, and sometimes I've given a pass to say things differently than others because comedy's been allowed to do that. Now they're trying to stop that too because they know the power of comedy because it mocks and ridicules stupidity and self-righteousness and arrogance, and nobody's more arrogant and self-righteous. Nobody. Than the left, and the progressives. Just the fact that you would call yourself progressive, that you're assuming that whatever you think up in the last 5 minutes is more progress than everything we've learned over the past 10,000 years is so arrogant, stupid. It's just stupid and foolish, bumbling foolishness that you are literally not taking the edict seriously. Those who do not observe history are condemned to repeat it. You say that, probably think it means something, but you don't live by it because you're a buffoon. You've lived and you have accepted a philosophical flawed idea known as Marxism, leftism, progressivism. It is broken. It is cancerous. It is a pile of walking dung everywhere you look. And you need to see it that way. You need to see it as your enemy, not the people. what the ideas are. They're the false religion. It's a religion, and that's why we're at stake. So when people say, hey, it's political, you Christians aren't supposed to be political. No. It's not political in that we're dealing with Democrat Republicans. It is cultural, which is exactly what we're here to do, is to remind people what God said about the culture. So that's what it means to be part of the Mighty 10,000. Do you want to be in? You can leave a note right now and say, I want to be in. But what I'd prefer you do is go to bradstine.com and contact, email. Then I'll have it. So if I ever get booted, I can contact you. Your name and your city. And then just write Mighty 10,000 or just 10,000 in any one of the lines next to you. And we'll know to contact you in about 2 months. We're looking at May 1st as the launch, where you can jump in and off we go. And let's just see what God might have for us. But I wanted you to see that clip so you could see that I do practice what I preach. I am speaking truth in front of the whole world. It's now out into the internet and everybody can see it. I'm not afraid of it because it's true. So if people want to attack me or disparage me or try to fight me over thousands and thousands of years of obvious truth, I don't care because I just know what I'm dealing with. Absolute fools. And so, why would I be frightened of those who have those ideas? But I also wanted you to understand that because so much of this is heavy, and it is, and there is a lot of angst because we could lose our country for real. It's not a joke. We really could. And we have almost lost it at times, from the Revolutionary War, where we were trying to gain a country, to the Civil War, where it could have been ripped into shreds, to the World Wars, where it could have been lost forever. So that's where we're at. We're in that kind of a space. We can fight back. We're still here. We still have pretended freedom. Yes, we are being attacked by institutions that are run by the left, and it is a war, and it is evil, and it is wrong, and it is an insurrection, systemic insurrection within the confines of academia and everything. I'm going to fight them. I'm going to try to destroy anyone who hates America and tries to teach our kids to hate this nation. That has to be destroyed, and I will go to my death doing that. That's what I believe is virtuous and true. But you can jump in and join me. It sure makes a lot more help when people jump in too. But that being said, because it is so heavy, I want to sometimes have some lighter discussions just so we can kind of take a breath. I put a lot of meat out. I need you to have a chance to chew it and swallow it. So we'll also have some deep guests. We got a lot more coming. They're already recorded, so you're going to love them. But I also have more coming, and we also want to have some fun times too. And so today's guest is an actor, as I said, and we did a film together. But he's been in some films, and one, Courageous, was very successful, and so we'll probably discuss that here shortly. But I did want to show you a clip of a film I was in. It's just a trailer for a film I was in that a lot of people recognize me for. It might be the single most recognized film I've been in. Came out a few years, maybe 10 years ago or more. It's called Christmas with a capital C. It started out as a song by a group called Go Fish, and my rant from Put a Helmet On's Christmas rant was sampled into it. It became a very big hit on Christian radio, and from that they built a film, and I was the first one given a role in the film based on my comedy, my character. So I wanted to show you that so you guys who didn't know I was an actor can look at just a quick clip of a film that you would actually enjoy watching. And you can find it, I think, on PureFlix streaming and probably other places. You can look on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if it's there, but it certainly should be on PureFlix streaming. Anyways, but it's called Christmas with the capital C. Some of you will recognize it, but I'm going to show you a trailer for those who didn't know. I can kind of act. Wyatt, if you would, play it, son.
In Trapper Falls, Alaska, Christmas is the biggest celebration of the year.
This is the only time of year the entire world has this shared experience of peace and hope for the future. I'll raise a cup to you, Trapper Falls. Merry Christmas!
But that's all about to change.
Someone new moving into town?
Look at this!
Well, if it isn't the Reed brothers, I've been looking for you boys.
Mitch Bright stopped by town today.
High school Mitch Bright?
You had a high school rival? So what did you guys compete over?
Football, basketball, mom.
I won that one.
Why would he come back here after so many years? What's he after?
A formal complaint has been filed about the town Christmas decorations.
Who filed this complaint? The Grinch?
Mitch Bright.
Now, to save Christmas,
So, What are you doing? Season's greetings?
It works for everybody.
Doesn't work for me.
He hates God. He doesn't want equal representation of religion. He wants none.
You really care about City Hall decorations?
So I do have a problem with Christmas. And all the rest of the garbage you Christians have been jamming down my throat since I was a kid.
Dan must save his job.
You want to run for mayor of this town, try to change it?
You go ahead, try it.
Get the help of his friends.
Mitch Bright has a personal vendetta against me.
You can't have a religious display on this site. Honey, please come down.
Back off! We are not going to cave in.
And the love of his family.
Moving the Christ child does no harm to his reputation. Perhaps you are more concerned about yours.
To defend the reason for the season.
It's not going anywhere.
You heard what the judge said, Dan.
That doesn't mean that you can ruin Christmas for everybody else here. I'm not going to let you hold this town hostage.
Ted McGinley.
Just because God's out of vogue in the big city doesn't mean we throw him away like last summer's fashion magazine.
Brad Stine.
Christians happen to have started the United States of America.
Nancy Stafford.
We spent less time worrying about our rights and more time worrying about others' needs. I think we might actually be doing Christmas.
And Daniel Baldwin.
American culture is not limited to this small-town bubble that you live in.
Sometimes what really needs saving is the human heart.
A little angel told us that you didn't get a proper welcome when you came to town. We thought we'd better take care of that.
And the true spirit of Christmas.
Christmas starts with a capital C. Christ the Lord is the center of Christmas. Not our rights, not our tradition, none of that matters if it starts to detract us from the one whose birth we celebrate.
Christmas with a capital C.
So, as you can see, when I have a beard, I'm incredibly attractive. Wyatt, what was it about the beard that you think made me so incredibly attractive?
Oh, boy. That combination of words, I would admit, gave me shell shock. But definitely the bushiness.
So you fear the beard?
Oh, I feel the beard, yes.
Okay. Well,
I embrace the beard, but I also feel it.
Well, who wouldn't, son? The beard's designed to frighten one. Don't you think a beard is man's attempt to look more bearish?
You know, I never thought of it that way, but after hearing you, I have to say, I still don't think that.
No. Well, I appreciate your candor. And one thing that I think is very, very, very important for my people is this. Listen, I love having you guys every week, but I am tired because I was in Sacramento just this morning. So I appreciate you guys are here. We have some great, great, great things, as you can see, happening. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll have some even bigger announcements I can make in regards to this podcast and where it can be seen and heard. But also just into the Militia of the Mind and how it's coming along and how you get to be participants, and as well the Mighty 10,000. So please sign up. Get me your email. Say you want to be part of the 10,000. You will be contacted. It'll be your sort of pre-subscription, so you will be one of the Mighty 10,000. You will not miss out. We already have plenty of people that have already given me their emails, so it's going to fill up. But it will change everything when it comes to this podcast, because we'll be able to do some really interesting things. I hope to be so innovative, so sophisticated, so creative that it really stands out and does some damage for the kingdom while I'm still here. Don't know how long I'm going to have left, but while I'm here, I'm going to fight like a man and hopefully go down like a warrior. So that being said, folks, thank you for being here. And now I'd love to introduce my guest for the evening. If you like faith-based films, Ben Davies is a guy you will have seen. You might be familiar with him in Courageous, Rumors of Wars, and numerous other films that we will be talking about. So I'm going to leave it up to him. Instead of just giving him a bunch of IMDb accolades and Wikipedia perspective, how about we just bring the guy on and let him speak? So, if you would, Brad Stine Has Issues, folks, please enjoy this conversation with a professional performance artist, actor, Christian, and man of God, but also someone I think you're going to really find interesting as we explore the performing arts and how people of faith can participate well. That's our hope, at least. Let's see if we can pull it off. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ben Davies. You know, on Brad Stine Has Issues, it's crucial that we don't just bring you the smartest people of all time. We don't just bring you the most unique people of all time, but we bring you the most variety of people that we can. And of course, I am always the least known, the least famous, and the stupidest of all the guests that I always bring on. And I like to keep it that way. So it gives the illusion that my show is sophisticated simply because everybody else is better at this than me. And in this case, once again, I have hit the jackpot. You know, as you guys know, who happen to have stumbled upon Brad Stine Has Issues, most of you came on because I was a comic and you liked what I did and you thought I was funny, you thought I was interesting. And then suddenly, here we go, putting on this podcast, and I had things that were more important to me, more interesting to me, and frankly, what I thought were more necessary to be discussed in America. So it's not funny, and unfortunately, oftentimes the truth isn't funny, but it does allow you to be inspired and educated and hopefully help us move forward to the next season in America. And I know it seems like a lofty goal. Excuse me. That's tuberculosis plus corona, and I just caught it. But it's going away now because I wasn't vaxxed. And so I wanted to bring on folks that not only I've met over the years, but also were involved in the arts. You know, when I started out as a comic, I was in nightclubs, comedy clubs, where you are either funny or you don't work, as opposed to the church where they go, he sucked, but he did it for Jesus, so we don't care. And I don't believe in that. I believe that the arts should be owned by Christ followers. Remember, we used to leave the Sistine Chapel as our legacy, and somewhere along the line we became puppeteers or something to that effect. And I want us to bring sophistication back to the way that Christians use the arts to tell the greatest story there ever was. So I've got a specific guest here with me today that not only is an artist, but also is involved as a producer for the Michael Knowles show on Daily Wire. So he's got a lot of interest and behind-the-scenes expertise in the world of broadcast, in the world of putting out information, and using social networks, which is the way people apparently are going to communicate now for the rest of eternity. So I wanted to talk to him, pick his brain, and let you get to know him. And if you are fans of faith-based film, you probably recognize him. So please welcome my guest on Brad Stine Has Issues, Ben Davies. God bless you, brother. How are you?
It is so good to be here with the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh,
I do wish that you could have introduced me as the smartest guest you ever had.
Yes, I was thinking about it.
Not just, this guy, he does a lot of little things. And I wanted to have one of those strong titles to come with it.
Oh, yes.
It was a beautiful intro that you had me
Forget everything. You've forgotten everything I just said. You don't smoke anymore either. So I would like to introduce the funniest and the smartest guest
Best
looking guest I've anything else?
Unvaxxed,
Unvaxxed, yes.
We're spreading something here for sure.
Something is going to, we're going to go viral, but it's not going to be the way that we have been talked about in the last 2 years as the corona cult took over the world. So, I wanted to talk to you, Ben, about this world of entertainment, about the world of the arts, about the world of believers in the arts. I believe that all truth is God's truth, but I also believe that the God that you and I happen to believe in is the greatest, most creative creator, clearly, in history, because he created everything. Matter, material, molecules, air, earth, mountains, life, breath. But he also said this: I've made you in my image. Go forth and do likewise. So I wanted to start with kind of your background, because you and I actually did a movie together many years ago.
I was wondering if you remember that.
Well,
you're a star,
remember.
man.
Oh, well.
You were inspiring. Seeing your performance and seeing you, no one dies quite as well as you. I will say, it's like,
and I learned that,
to do it, man.
I learned that from being a comedian, because I die all the time on stage. But you know what? it was fun because, and Matt Powell was there from.
It was a really fun group for how difficult that shoot was. I don't want to get too off track because obviously there's so many things.
No, that's all right. Well, it was called.
Rumors of Wars.
Rumors of Wars. Was that now? You were a star in that. Was that your first starring role?
No. My first starring role was Courageous, and then from there, which is a kind of a wild story. I know you asked for my backstory a little bit. It does lead. Courageous is such a pivotal point in my.
Well, go ahead. Let's just get into it. Tell me your story.
Well, what happened? Well, as my phone is just blowing up, I don't want to mess up your audio. Basically, I was a track athlete. Through high school, I was actually the most decorated American decathlete of all time. Yeah, I was the number one. Yeah, I was the Junior Olympic national record holder.
Man, you were the most.
Do you think this is all by accident? This physique,
you were the most decorated decathlete in America.
Yeah,
I mean that's huge.
I was the Junior Olympic national record holder. I was the greatest American ever under 17. So that was my recruitable year was 17.
Wow.
So 18, there's a dispute with the record because it's a different size shot put.
Okay.
But anyway,
so you're like the latter day Bruce Jenner.
Yeah, which it hit me so hard I lived in LA at that time when the Bruce Jenner thing happened. And I grew up like literally idolizing this man for accomplishing one of the greatest feats in history, being the world's greatest athlete. And then most people in LA, where I was living and acting at the time, they just knew him as the guy who bumbled around the background of that TV show.
Yes.
I'm like, no, this is a insane thing that just happened.
And
they were
I was old enough. I saw him win the Olympics. It was '76. I watched it because I was alive then. You weren't. You were just a glimmer in your parents' loins. But nevertheless, so you were a fan of his clearly, and the man was. I think he'd set world records all over the place when he won his. Yeah. But what got you into that particular? Because that's not a typical sport that people gravitate to.
No, it's not, and it's kind of what you talked about in your opening monologue. We're like, oh, he's not the smartest, he's not this, he's not that, but he does a lot of cool things. And that, honestly, that is what I had. I had a really strong drive. I was really competitive, but I wasn't great at one thing. And the decathlon, which is what I did, is all 10 of the events in track and field. So I wasn't necessarily the best thrower, the fastest guy, the best distance runner, high jumper, pole vaulter, whatever. But I disciplined myself enough to where I was great at each individual task in front of me, and I excelled in that. And I went to college, University of Florida, and I got hurt at University of Georgia. And then during my surgery, that's when for the first time in probably 6 or 7 years, I had time to go on auditions and act again. And so I auditioned for Courageous in a sling. And then they were like, hey, can you actually shoot this movie? And I was like, yeah, Have got like 9 months of recovery, so I can shoot this movie.
How did you hear about it?
I had an agent in Nashville. Okay. There's a Christian agency here that my mom started when I was young. Yeah. And it was the first time the Kendrick brothers wanted to have professional actors that were outside of the church, but they still wanted like Christian actors.
No,
so
I'm sorry, but just when one prefaces it, it's the first time they wanted professionals.
They didn't want to have
in their movies. And I know, I understand, but in a way, that's kind of the double-edged sword of what has irked me as a professional stand-up comic who was a Christian. Working in nightclubs, at the improvs, at the funny bone, at the places where the best comics were. But I had to be funny because they don't screw around. If this is what your job is, and if you can't do it, we're not giving you a pass. You're out.
This is such a great point. When you brought it up, people don't realize what a shark pit stand-up comedy is. Like going in there and you have to earn every emotion, every clap, piece of gratitude. Like it is all earned. Like it is so... And it is a fight, and you don't get, like you said, at least he said Jesus, so he did he was a good effort, you know what I mean? Which that does unfortunately happen sometimes where they give you don't have those hard lessons, you don't get beaten down like you should, you're not always told, like, hey, you have to go work on this to come and then come back later.
Right.
And I did see a little bit of that when I moved to LA because, I did do all the training leading up to it. I didn't just, go to church and then start acting. Like, I started doing acting training when I was 5, passively. But it was like I did commercial work, I did do music video stuff, I did training every year for acting. When I was even auditioning, I didn't just jump in from the decathlon to do even the audition. Like I went back to Nashville, paid a coach, worked with them for a week. Like it wasn't just you just jump in and start acting.
Yes.
But it was even a different ball game going to LA and going to these different casting rooms and then these different acting schools.
Yes.
And it is a shark pit in those auditioning rooms. Like you know a little bit of it would be like, but it's not even as intense as the things you went through. This is why valleys are so good and difficulties are so important, and that's one thing that the church removes from us sometimes. Is you go into those rooms. I bet an acting audition room feels like nothing. Like you standing up and having to earn the laugh of 200 people in a bar that doesn't know you compared to just auditioning one-on-one.
Well, what's interesting is this about that. a lot of people don't know this, my fans do, or my people that watch my show do, because I've talked about it. I was a professional magician before I was a comedian, so I did sleight of hand magic professionally in Southern California before I became a comedian. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh,
so I learned a lot of, and I say this only to give people a backdrop. It's not in some accolade. I'm a Renaissance man. I'm just interested in lots of things. I just have always been that way. So I learned close-up magic, sleight of hand, card magic, coin tricks. Worked in clubs. Worked in Magic Castle, Magic Island, all these famous
Magic
places.
Castle?
Yes. And awesome. Did all these things where people, were known for that particular unique performance art known as sleight of hand magic, which is one of the oldest performance arts in human history. And I learned that first, and so I would do what they called, at that time it was called table hopping or close-up, because I would be in a restaurant, so you'd literally go up to the tables of the people talking and sitting there and eating, and suddenly you'd perform magic right there at the table, like David Blaine, but except for now you're eating, and what's this? It's a magic show. So, but I could do it. I always had the skill as an actor. I had no, when I was young, from the earliest, and that's why I know it's a gift. If the teacher said, we're going to have a test, it's going to be what do you call it? Vocal. What do you call it? Like when you have to talk.
Talking?
Yeah, a talking test.
Yeah.
Well, where you had to stand in front of the class and talk, right?
Oh, like presentations.
Yeah, whatever. Well, everybody would go, oh, and I'd be going, where do we start?
Yeah.
Because I loved being in front of people. Now, that's a rare, I guess,
it is. I mean,
trade.
it goes against the number one fear in the world is not dying, is public speaking. So
public speaking, and I loved it. I embraced it. I don't know why. So, again, I just look at it like God decided you get to be that guy.
Yeah.
So, I would go up to these tables of people I did not know and instantly learn how to build a rapport, instantly learn how to perform, instantly learn how to bring them in, instantly learn how to control them, which is kind of what comedy is. You have you have all these. I'm the orchestra leader, and we got an oboe over there, and there's a tenor over there, and there's a tuba, because all these folks have these different sort of backgrounds and ethnicities and histories and ages, and you got to make them one. You got to make them laugh at the same thing, come together, feel connected, and you're orchestrating it, because if they ain't laughing, it's on you. There's nowhere to hide. I'm not in a band where I'm the bass guy. I'm going to lay back. You guys take it. It's me.
And once that energy leaves, it's so hard. You could feel it too. That is interesting, going from like the most intimate form of that, which would be like close-up magic. You can tell when you don't have someone's attention or they're not fully bought in, and then stepping back a little more in like the comedy scene.
Well, that's what I wanted to say, because you were making a comment about that, but it's interesting for folks who are interested in the arts and maybe don't do it, is what you really have to go through to learn this thing, because you don't know what it's like, and everybody wants to do that. And if you're really good at it, it looks easy.
That's so true. Yeah.
And so you don't know anything. Well, that's all he does is joke around. Everybody says I should be a comedian. It's like, yeah, no, I'm sure you're funny. But here's the problem. When you get laughs with your friends, it's because they know you, they trust you, they know your personality, they've gotten used to it, they accept you. Now take that guy. Now go stand up in front of 200 strangers and make them feel that like that.
And the timing and the organic stuff that you have to come up with as you write material, because I haven't done much stand-up comedy, but I have followed like a lot of people that are.
Yeah.
And then hearing these lifetime pros, like staples, whether you follow comedy or not, you know that person's name, knowing that when they do have a new set, new material, they're going in and working the clubs, doing the small scenes. You have to keep working on the material, and you're like, aren't you just funny? Like bombing to work out. Like, okay, this didn't work. Maybe I move it here. Maybe I change this line here. And that so much is what acting is too. It's about making it look easy. I know different techniques that different actors and actresses use. I know Kate Blanchett's is interesting, where she dedicates, I believe, a room of her house, and will walk around it and write on sticky notes different things that her character may think here or here or here or here, or in the scene, this moment, and we'll fill like basically the entire room with different thoughts and things to go through, just not even memorizing the lines, just like what this person could think. Just it takes that much time to develop these
Well,
you
that
don't even
sounds
think about
very
that.
much method acting. I mean, that's very Stanislavski, that whole idea of really just being so specific. That's the where they used to have you pretend like you're in a bathtub and do, because it's that sensory memory. And I remember thinking, it's another story. We're getting all over the place, but I think this is even more interesting for folks.
Yeah, I could definitely go over those things.
Yeah, and we will. So let's not forget that idea. But I wanted to sort of finish this thought because I think it might be interesting to folks, is that I could go up to these tables, I could perform my magic. Everybody thought it was funny. Everybody loved it. Because I was funny, by the way. I did it with humor. It was just natural to me. So I thought, well, shoot, I want to do a comedy magic show on a larger scale, because there's only so much money you can make doing a little close-up magic. And I could do parties and this and that. But it's like, I can make more money if I can do a stand-up show. And I thought, well, shoot, and there's all these comedy clubs. So if I was a comedy magician, it just gives me, so it was more practical. Like there's a income there that I can go pursue if I could do a bigger show, comedy magic, and I can go into comedy clubs, and I just opened up all this other potential revenue. So that's why I went to do it. So I went to do it with a friend who was a magician, and it was, we were in Southern California, so it was called The Last Stop. It was a famous club in Newport Beach.
Oh, it's a great spot.
Had been around, and had been around. Steve Martin had worked at Jay Leno, all these guys, because it had been around since the 70s when comedy boom hit. Mm-hmm. So they had open mic night, and he said, I'm going to call. He said, I'll tell you what, you go up, and if you'll go up and do your 5 minutes, I'll do it too, and I'll just do monologue. And he was just a magician. It's like, how is he going to do that? And he called him, and he set up, and we went to do our thing. He did up. He was pretty funny. I was shocked. So I went up, and I remember thinking, well, I can do this. I've been in front of, 3 or 4 or 5 people that I didn't know, and instantly got them laughing and enjoying. It's like, this is going to be easy with all these people. It's going to be easy because I can make 4 people laugh. How easy is it going to be to make 40 laugh or 50? And you get on stage and you turn around and you're raised up and the lights are there and you have a mic and you have the people and they're all kind of spread out, and suddenly you realize, where am I? This is a whole different ball game. And one of the first things you realize is, what is this? How do you do this? My technique is part of comedy. Uh-huh. You have to know how to use that properly. How do I talk over here? And that what if I have to hold something? What do I do with this? Oh, I got to have it here, and suddenly there's all this theatrical aesthetic that you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
And everybody's staring at you like, be funny. It's like, holy crap. So that was a revelation to me, because there was almost like a panic in my mind, like, I don't know what I'm starting over. It isn't that easy. This is a whole different ball game. Does it have pieces of the puzzle I'm familiar with? Yes. Does my personality as a comic, as a magician, as somebody that's funny, as somebody that is not afraid to try this out, is that all intrinsic in me and I can apply it to this? Yes. Do I have the cojones to do this? Yes. Nevertheless, you got a lot of work to do, because this is you're learning a brand new game. And it's one thing I always tell people about. I've known a lot of musicians, I've known a lot of actors and folks like you connect to, and of course in Nashville you meet so many people.
Yeah.
To a man, nobody is more impressed or is more frightened or more amazed about a performance art than stand-up comedy. Those people say, I don't know how you... That is like the freakiest thing. I'm talking about lead singers in bands and people that you would think would be fearless. Scares the crap out of them.
Well, they still have a barrier in front of them, too. Like, when you're performing something like that, you have, like, the song, you have, like, the guitar, the music, the instruments. If you're doing comedy, it's so raw, and it's so much of, can I personally, like, win these people over? Yeah. Versus, like, I'm going to get to the new song in a second, and you may like it. And, like, this may have your style, you may like it. But this is also just, I didn't actually write this song. This is someone else's song. I'm doing a cover. There's a lot of different levels of production you can have. And there's something so raw about stand-up comedy. There's actually a friend of mine, he's the head vice, or I guess I can't say his official title. At the time, he was the head of casting at 20th Century Fox. And he scouted people at these different events across the country. And there was one event that he went to, and he didn't even watch the actors do monologues. He didn't watch the commercial people do their commercials. Because he told me, he's like, Ben, those are too rehearsed. It's not even, that's not even them up there. They've just done this a million times. They're going to say they're going to do it the exact same way they'd rehearsed for like 4 or 5 months. He only cast from guess which show that he would bring his people into audition them.
From a live show?
It was modeling. It was a modeling and acting competition, and so he only found people that he wanted to audition from this one specific showcase. Can you guess what the showcase would be?
I don't.
It would be impossible. He only cast from Swimsuit, and it wasn't a just a thing that he'd like to watch at all. It was just that was the only time he could see people actually raw. Like if you're on a runway to captivate people. Not having the clothes, not being like, hey, it's about the clothes, it's about me, it's about my body.
You're just vulnerable.
It is. You could tell by someone's walk if they could handle a script in front of them and have the charisma. And he only. Now, it didn't mean these people were going to be great actors, but they had the raw potential. Like you talked about the cojones.
Yeah.
You knew that those people could be turned into an actor or an actress.
Yes.
And so that's where he found. There's a couple. I don't know. Matt Zuckery, who was on, with the guy from Daredevil. There's a few other actors. And then I believe he found the guy from. McDreamy or whatever from
yes.
Yeah, I believe one of those two guys.
I know who you're talking about.
But that's like where he basically found the people. Like that
it was swimsuit modeling.
If someone is comfortable on stage and can captivate a group of people and show their personality just walking for 50 feet in a swimsuit, he's like, all right, then we can teach them how to act. How do they feel this or do this? Like those people had the thing about
Very interesting. Well, and it is a thing. People I think sometimes forget or misuse the word gift, like, oh, he's gifted. And it's like, well, I believe that's true. What makes it a gift is you didn't earn it. Some things you're good at and you don't know why. And so but here's what I've found to be true, Ben, is that people tend to never give themselves credit for what they're good at, but only those things they can't do. Well, you're an amazing actor. Yeah, but if I could play a piano. We always think that thing is hard because if something comes kind of natural to us, we feel like, well, this can't be of much value because it's easy. It's not easy. You have the gift, so it feels easy. The way I frame it is, I don't think Einstein went to a blackboard and wrote E = MC squared and stepped back and said, man, am I smart? Am I a genius? I think he said, why doesn't nobody else see this? Because that's how his mind worked. And
this is the only way it makes sense.
So yeah, it just came out of his perspective, and it was so natural that he had no other way to see it, and so you assume others can see it too, but they can't. Most people, the hardest thing about comedy isn't necessarily writing jokes, and not everybody can. It's not necessarily being funny, because there's lots of funny people, and I'm sure you've known some wonderfully funny people. They're not stand-up comics. They're just funny. It's not even standing in front of the audience, even though that is a huge fear, as you said. Psychologically, it's the number one fear, standing in front of audience speaking. The biggest need you will have to either have or cultivate to be a stand-up comic, are you willing to have people hate you, mock, ridicule you, and you'll come back?
That's a really good point.
Because that's the problem, is when you're eating it, and here's what happens. When you start out in comedy, and you think you're funny, and you finally get the courage to go up and try it, and it bombs, because you're mainly going to bomb until you figure it out. That's just the deal. So you're first off learning, do I have the courage and the temerity to say, I'm going to keep doing this because I don't care. I'm in. You need that thing. But secondly, here's the biggest problem. You don't know yet, am I bombing because I suck or I don't know how to do it yet? And you have to be willing to accept those consequences until you figure it out. And that was where I said, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care what happens. I know I can do this, and I'm not getting down. And it's the only performance art I know of that you have to rehearse in front of the audience. So it's very dangerous. And most people do not have the courage to endure the ridicule or the disdain, because what's the number one fear? It's not speaking in front of people, it's having them not like you or think ill of you.
Yeah,
that's what you're experiencing when you do comedy.
That's the result, yeah.
So you're literally putting yourself in the worst case scenario to see if you can come through.
And is that, do you think, why the Christians have not succeeded as much as they should have in the entertainment industry? Because we, as a Christian community, we're so all about encouraging and making things soft and easy and loving so much that we don't give each other like the hard truth or the tough criticism.
Yes.
And so we're afraid of that naturally, of being like, well, I've never even experienced that before. Like I can't go up there and have these people criticize me because my mom or my friend, my siblings, my church community has been so encouraging that they're afraid of failing or having that negative kind of that negative reaction to whatever they're doing. That's one of the main reasons why we shied away from it.
Yes, and I do believe, though, and I've said this before, and this interview is about you, not me, but we're peers in that regard, and so maybe this is interesting to folks to see the process, if we're going to use an acting word, of how creative people have to go about navigating this very difficult type of art, because it's very personal. It's you.
Yes.
It's you taking the heat. It's you being told that you weren't very good. It's you.
I can't even. I have difficulty rehearsing full speed because if I try to do like have this moment or like this intimate thing or this kind of a emotional pull in a scene and it doesn't land, I don't want them to think like, oh, this is all he's got. You know, like it's just not a good habit, because a lot of times the best work is worked out, but I like to have the cameras rolling. I like to feel like the adrenaline has to happen.
Yeah.
I hate rehearsing because I'm like, what if I didn't land, you know? Like,
yeah, well, and no, I agree. And I'm kind of the same boat, is that I kind of do it half speed if we're just kind of blocking it or running, because I want to save things that for the actor, because I love to try to surprise the actor. Because I like to be surprised. Mm-hmm. I want you to keep me on my heels, because then something beautiful happens. Because what happens is you leave your left brain, which wants to control everything, and you're forced into your right brain, because suddenly the guy's going off script, or he's doing something odd, or you didn't see that coming, or you assumed he would say this but he didn't, and suddenly you have to go, I just got to make this real because I don't know what's happening, and you almost are controlled by something else inside of you. You're almost watching the scene unfold, and you're in the middle of it, but you almost feel like, I'm not doing this. That's the muse, yeah? Wouldn't you consider that a spiritual part of the human experience that perhaps God uses to communicate? Maybe your soul is being exposed at that moment?
Yeah, it is such a hard thing to explain. I've tried to explain the kind of the rush that I only found in acting that I couldn't get anything else. Like, how do you even describe those kind of feelings and those emotions, that weird kind of connection you have with these different people in these different scenes? And it does kind of feel like a spiritual thing. Like, you're just discovering something together in its best form in these scenes. If you trust the person across from you, and it's a well-written moment, and there's a lot of work has bled into whatever this new scene is. Like, hopefully there's been some character development, some building, there's something we're moving to. And then you get to be in this little tiny moment that you're in. It's almost like, God can see the whole world play out, all these incredible stories and all these awesome purposes he's had coming to fruition all the time. And you get to have this one small little thing that is contrived, but all the cameras are on it, and you're in the scene with this other person in it, and the audio is listening in, and you're just trying to have that little thing that happens, to have everyone take a beat when they're watching and just be like, that was cool. Like, that was a really cool moment. And it is kind of like that, creating something like that. You're creating like something in life, in that.
Yes.
In its best form. Like, it doesn't happen in every movie. Maybe there's like one scene and you're like, wow, that just blew me away. And it's frozen in time forever. Like this perfect little thing that you feel for this character that's inspiring here, and it's just there forever. It's
I found that, and I mean, who knows? Everybody has their own reasons why they get into that kind of world. But I found that, for me, in some odd psychological way, acting allowed me to explore emotional elements of myself that I was afraid to expose in reality. So
I've heard that a lot.
So it's kind of like,
I don't get it all.
But here, let me give you an example of what I mean, and then we can look about it. I came out of divorce. I came out of some very painful childhood experiences, and my parents lived 2,000 miles apart. Indiana was my mom and brothers, and my dad was in California. So I would explain it like this, and I'd go to visit them, which means I had to leave my dad, and I love my dad, so I felt bad, like, I got to go away, and I want to be with my dad. And then I would be with them, and then I have to leave. So it was almost like a scab always had to be torn off every time I went to go be with the other one, because I felt bad leaving them, and I almost felt guilty, but I want to see them. And so it was too much. for a 12-year-old. And so I was on a tarmac in Indianapolis, a 12-year-old kid, flying home, 12 or 13, crying because I'm leaving my mom, my brother and sister, going to see my dad. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I really said these words. I'm never going to feel pain again. I had to fix this because I can't negotiate it. I had no way to do that. I'm 13. I have no life experience. I can't sort of go, you've been here before. You'll get through it. You're too young. It's all raw. And you don't know. You're just beginning to learn how bad life can be. You don't know. You're too innocent when you're young. Everything's good. Everything's taken care of. And suddenly, let me tell you what really is out there. There's some demons out there. Get ready. Well, you don't get to tense up when you're 12. You don't get to take the blow. It's full blown because you're a kid.
Yeah, you have nothing compared to whatever happens to you is the most heightened
because
thing that's ever happened.
And it's the most dramatic because again, you don't have enough life experience to go, I've made it through this. This is nothing. But you don't know it then. And so I literally built a wall around my heart because I didn't know how else to endure. Well, here's the truth. You build a wall around your heart to not feel pain. It works. You can do it. The problem is love doesn't come in either. Nothing does. A wall is a wall, and nothing goes out. You're stuck. And so I wanted to feel. I was a pretty sensitive kid. I wanted to feel. I was afraid to feel. I was ashamed to feel. I didn't want to hurt. But guess what acting let me do? Go find that moment, that guy, that feeling safely, because it's not me. It's not me crying or it's not me in pain. It's this guy. So I'm free to do that without the shame, without so in some odd way, it was a way for me to go find my feelings again, my emotions. Now, you said that doesn't make sense to me. So are you pretty much an emotional guy and you just feel whatever is there and let it happen?
There's so much to talk about that. And I've seen things like this in different acting schools that I was at in LA, where girls that I had really good friendships with, messed up doing certain scenes because they got into it and they were pulling off kind of a scab and these walls they had built up, and then they're so nervous to do these different scenes. And I want to get back to that too, but for me it was because I've heard that so many times, but I was so the opposite, where fortunately I didn't have anything like that when I was younger. I had a stable family structure. There was not any personal tear in my heart that I was protecting, but I was had a really rough childhood emotionally. I had a really traumatic experience where I had a PTSD that I didn't work out until later. It was just something that haunted me, almost like you almost have a demon that was following you around. At any moment you could seize up because you were scared of this moment happening. So I had that I dealt with, and then I was really bullied a lot in high school. It's funny, bringing up most people you were an athlete, and you're 6'2", how'd you get bullied? But I I had a really hard time finding friends and connecting with people. I was at a Christian private school, and everyone was wealthy, everyone was a good athlete. It was just, and
was it here in Nashville?
Yeah, and I was kind of the punching bag of this group, where it was just, I didn't have any friends there. I remember one thing I did when I was younger was I was just watching people, and I would try to figure out what is that guy doing that makes him cool. And I also would pay attention to this girl, and I could see that maybe her body language is weird that day, and she's obviously emotional, going through stuff. And this guy who's the comedian, but you could tell that he's really dealing with stuff in the background. And I was just paying attention to people, basically how could I be one of the cool guys? But in doing so, I was just watching people, and I think it helped me a lot as an actor, being feel these different people. I was empathizing with them a lot, and that's one of the things that I feel a lot when I'm going into these different characters and these scenes. Even though I had a lot of painful things that happened to me growing up, or breakups or bullying stuff, or times I was really angry and you can't do anything. You want to hit that guy, but you don't. Those kind of things. But in acting, I enjoy going back and having those little moments, because I got through those things, and it's I'm not that person, but those things that I kind of pushed to the side or ignored, or things I saw in a different person, being able to kind of feel those for a minute, I I love my favorite scenes, the ones that I dig into where it's a tragedy or like I'm a broken person.
Yeah.
Or if I'm angry, which some of the people have seen like Vindication, where I get to like blow up on my wife in that scene. Like those kind of things I love, and I get amped up to do it. And it's not because I like being angry at people, but I get to like feel for a moment this thing that hopefully is true, and it's a unique experience that I know not many people get to have. It's crazy. And so I really appreciate it. And I always loved getting those scenes with those different people where we get to be emotional or crying and it really hits home when you get to play a true story character like with I'm Not Ashamed, where I played a real guy, and it was with Rachel Joy Scott with the Columbine shooting, and then being able to get in those scenes and feel that pain. I was like, I felt so fortunate that I'm like, the love that they had for each other, like I got to feel a little bit of that, or what God was doing in their lives here, and how he reached out and how much that would have meant to this character. I got to feel that a little bit. I love that stuff, but however, I know a lot of people really have a hard time with that. Like I remember doing a scene in LA with this girl, and she had talked about how she had a bad relationship, and I was being a boyfriend in a scene where I was supposed to be like angry, and I'm supposed to like, dive into the room, and keep in mind this is a really safe setting. Like there's probably 10 people in the room, they're on couches, the teacher's here, she's here, and she's supposed to be like pacing in a room, and I'm supposed to like barge in and like be like, where were you or something like that, and then we were really getting into it, and then I came in the room, but I came in too early, and she wasn't yet not quite ready, and she like had like a meltdown, and the teacher was yelling at me, but I was like, I didn't mean to. I thought that was my cue to jump in. Like, and she's like, no, you got to be careful. Like she's in a fragile state. And I was like, and I had to talk to her afterwards and kind of work through what she was going through. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like,
See, now that in a way that bothers me, because I feel like what I loved about acting, and I was in class here in Spicer in Beverly Hills. You might have heard of him when you were out there, or some other folks. And the thing that I do love about acting, and it's dangerous for a Christian, because one of the things that great acting, back to Meth and Stanislavski and Udehagen and all those, was that you literally become whatever is necessary for the moment. Your body becomes an instrument to become whatever is needed at that time, whatever they are. Another thing you're taught, you never judge your character. So if you're Hitler, you don't sit there and say, boy, am I evil. No, evil people think they're good. So you always give them humanity, because to them, it's okay to kill Jews because they're not people, and it's, you got to wrestle with your own true morality. But when you kind of release yourself to whatever this particular character is, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but it's almost like a out-of-body experience, a seance or something, because you're kind of letting yourself, who has morals, has virtues, has specific expectations of the Spirit of the living God inside of you, who's now saying, now go kiss and fondle that girl because that's your wife, and or go beat up that guy, and you're like, I'm not that guy, but I'm not that guy, I'm this guy, but my body is taken. Which is why Kirk Cameron wouldn't kiss.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain actions I get why people don't take. The method acting thing, to me, I know a lot of guys that try to, like, I've done movies and films with people who method act, and they just kind of pretend like they're the person, but they have no actual skills as far as what's actually going on the page. They just try to dive into a character, and they don't realize, like, the moments that have to be earned, or, like, why this is written here, and, like, what's going on in the scene. They just pretend to be a mean person, or pretend to be an over-sexualized person. Whatever the character is, and it does nothing for your performance.
No.
And I do know, but there are gifted people that can go down these rabbit holes, and I tend to think those people, I mean, some of them are fantastic actors in Hollywood, like some people do the method acting stuff all the way through, most famously Daniel Day-Lewis, people like that. But, sometimes it does help, but I get how that could be dangerous to go into it. I've never, in what I've seen, I've not seen that it's been super dangerous, but I also don't think that method acting is at all the best mode. Where it's helpful is, for example, the I'm Not Ashamed movie. So I worked on that scene. Like, I got the actual journals that Rachel messaged my guy. The whole movie is about, like, these actual messages that she gave to this random guy that she met on the side of the road. And my character was 17 at the time. He was homeless. Everyone turned their back on him. He was worthless. And this amazing girl, it's this, like, 16-year-old girl, befriended him out of nowhere for no reason and had a personal correspondence with him, like basically a text thread, but it was back in the day you wrote on a sheet of paper. And so I studied through all their material, and I was doing all this stuff, and they had the script, and I was studying the material and the script, and I was doing coaching stuff. And one thing I overlooked, I was like, well, my character's homeless, right? I'm like, I can imagine what that's like. I can imagine what it'd be like to be homeless and beg for money. And then the week before we shot, I had like a day off, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do something stupid. I'm gonna do this like method acting thing where I'm not really acting, but I was like, I'm gonna go down there, wear my wardrobe, and just see what it's like. And I remember driving down to downtown Nashville in my outfit, and I had my tattoos, and my ears were pierced, and hair was all matted up, and I had my everything together. And I remember thinking to myself, gosh, what am I gonna do with the money? Because we'd be asking people for money, like, am I just gonna donate it somewhere? I was like, yeah, I'll probably donate it somewhere. And I get down to downtown Nashville, and I start walking. It's Sunday afternoon. It's burning hot. It's like 110 degrees in these jeans. I remember walking down to get to Broadway, and as people were leaving their Sunday brunch spots, whatever they were actively avoiding me on the sidewalk. Like, for the first time in my life, people were moving away from me. And I was like, that's weird. And then I started to feel really embarrassed and ashamed. And it's not even me. I'm just like, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, I'm already here, like, whatever. And I don't even want to sit in public. I'm like, well, let me just sit in this alley area. And I couldn't even bring myself to write on the sign, like, please give me something. And I was sitting there, and everyone's just like looking at me and treating me horribly. And I remember miserable. And then this voice pops up, and he's like, hey man, what's up? And I was like so excited, like, oh great, someone's gonna talk to me. And it was some random homeless guy asking for a cigarette. And I was like, I don't have anything. I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting there, and I sat there for a couple hours just thinking to myself, like, this is awful. And then out of nowhere, this gorgeous, like, black girl, probably like a college student at Vanderbilt or whatever, she comes out of an ice cream shop, and she like looks at me, and then she like smiles and waves and walks by, and my heart kind of like leapt. I was like, wow, that meant a lot. And then so for me, thinking back to my character of, like, if you were homeless and you were pushed away from society and no one at church is helping you, now your friends are there for you, your family's gone, and this little girl decides to come find you and not just like smile for a second, but she actually has a journal, and she like picks you up on your feet and gets you a place to live, and then losing her at the end of the movie, now all of a sudden it made sense. Like, but if I didn't go through that experience, it wasn't like I was pretending to be him necessarily, but you just can't pretend in your room what it's like to be homeless if you've never experienced it.
Right.
And so there is like some merit to sorry, we're getting a little emotional. It's like that was a wild movie, but there is some merit to like putting yourself out there.
Being emotional. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about but that's the. I'm telling you though, it was cathartic for me. See, I couldn't be emotional. I shut that down, so it gave me a place to find my humanity that I had lost in real time, existentially, and didn't know how to find it. I had to find it through a counterfeit by playing somebody else and giving permission for that guy to feel, because I'm not allowed to. And so what I'm saying is that was helpful to me. I mean, at least I had somewhere to go and go, this is what it meant to be human again. I want to be that guy, because you do get stuck. You talk about PTSD, whatever the scar is, whatever the wound is, you're stuck. You're stuck. And if it's five is still here. 10-year-old is still here until you. And I had this amazing experience. There was a ministry called Operation Restored Warrior, and it was initially for PTSD for military, but it was, they also allowed civilians, and a friend of mine kept inviting me, and I finally went. And it's some deep stuff, but one of the things they do, it's this therapeutics method that kind of brings you back to your history, and they're kind of walking you through it. And this has been bathed in prayer, and it's because it's hardcore. You're going into some places that you've avoided your whole life. And they talk about find that place where it first happened, where it hurt, that worst case scenario. And then they go, where's Jesus? Huh? I want you to look around. Where is he? Well, he's over there. What's he doing? He's crying. He was there, and it's like, and anyways, eventually you lose it, because you get to go back to 12-year-old and say, we made it. Let's get you out of here. And that's needed, Ben, but God Almighty, I don't want to go. I don't want to go, but the pain in your life gets so deep sometimes that you say, whatever it takes to get out of here, I'm willing to go there now. You'll avoid it until eventually there's nothing left. I got to go back and get that guy out of there, or I'm not going to get out. I'm not going to have a life. And that's where I was.
Yeah, there's two things that are prominent in our culture. One is running from those things, or letting that thing be what defines you forever. Like this it's just who you are, so you just need to take these drugs or take this medication, we'll just numb it and it'll like go away. Or it turns into like resentment, or it's like, well, how could this happen to me? And then you lash out at everyone that's around you, that kind of thing. Unless you face it, and you're right, you let Jesus take hold of that healing moment, and then you can actually look back on those, because a lot of times the most painful moments, the most difficult moments in your life, those are the times that you've either learned the most or you've grown the most, and you become the most thankful for that.
Of course.
I remember a lot of times where I was talking about bullying in high school, it was like, when I was doing public speaking after Courageous, it allowed me the opportunity to empathize and also reach different people who were going through similar things. And I was like, yeah, if I didn't deal with that, I wouldn't know what that's even like.
Right.
So I was like thankful for it. I wouldn't go back and be like, oh, I wish I had an easier path in high school. Like, no, I was glad for the trials and tribulations because it turned me to the person I am today.
Well, you always grow more from pain than pleasure.
100%.
I mean, you need it more than you need the pleasure. The pleasure is nice. It's a respite. It's a place where you get to rest for a little bit, because you need that too. You need to be able to go, can I just have a hammock and a margarita for a second? Because now things are rough. But, and I know this is true because God showed me this. He brought me to this idea of, okay, so what is Jesus? What is Jesus? Well, he's God and he's man, but he became man so he could actually tell us, I've been there. Now, if God had never done that, there's no other religion, by the way, that has this story where he dimensionalized himself and actually was there and has a historical record of him.
Yeah.
This isn't Zeus. This isn't Thor. This was a guy that really existed, the Son of God. I'll prove it. I'll do some miraculous things so you know I control nature. Know that I'm not a cult leader. I can verify my street cred because I really control things. I'm going to die. I'm going to come back to life. I'm going to sacrifice for you so I can feel the pain. I'm going to accept the punishment for you. I'm going to be crucified. It's going to be horrible. Jesus came to earth for one reason, to be crucified for us. And when it was about there, he said, is there another way? Can I get out of this? Jesus, who knew I'm only here for this moment, said, take this cup. I don't know. I love that. It's beautiful because it shows the true humanity, but it just shows what was at stake. The pain isn't to be trifled with. It isn't something to act as though, here's a scripture verse, you're good. No, I'm not. I don't want a frickin' scripture verse. I want you to cry with me right now. I want you to just walk with me right now. How about just listen? And we don't, oftentimes as Christians, give each other this vulnerable moment to say, it's okay to shake your fist. He's okay. God's all right. I get it. You're a kid. You don't know what you're doing. I'll get you through this. And I believe that when God told us, you're crucified with Christ, when God tells us, you are going to emulate me, that's what our pains are. It's our crucifixion. So whatever, you mentioned a PTSD moment, and if you want to talk about it, maybe you don't. Maybe that would be helpful to somebody. But either way, you were crucified. That moment. You're going to die with this pain. And instead of God saying, I'm punishing you with this pain, what he's saying is, I'm trusting you with this. I'm going to give you this crucifixion because I believe that you will die and you will be resurrected. And then you're going to heal thousands of people because you came on the other side and came out of the grave. And that's what happens. Which is exactly what you said. Had I not experienced these things, how could I have empathized with somebody? How could I have really told them, I can't take this from you and I can't fix it, but I can tell you this, I know exactly how you feel. It's a pretty beautiful thing, but it sucks.
It is kind of what I discovered too when I was getting to that role. It's like, unless you go down there and walk those streets, you really don't know exactly what it's like and how to talk to people and what it would mean for that person in these different situations. And yeah, that was with me as far as going through a traumatic experience. Fortunately, it wasn't anything like, it was not like attacked or anything like that, but it was this, what happens in a lot of those triggering situations. I hate the word triggering, but it's like this when it actually came from, where it's something that would trigger an actual panic attack, And it's like whatever instance does for the first time make your body have a panic attack where your body's like that fight or flight where it's everything your body is telling you you're going to die, so you have to get out of it. I was 11 years old and I had a crazy fever, like an actual fever. I had like 103 or something like that. And I was having like a fever dream, crazy. And it was dark and I was in this room by myself. And then it was just like I had a dream and I came out and I couldn't fully wake up, and my head was exploding because I was having a fever, and so all you're kind of hallucinating, and it was just all these kind of horrifying demonic voices yelling at me. Wow. And then it was like, as a kid you're just freaking out, and so then from then on, I was almost like afraid to go back to sleep because you don't want that to happen again. So then as I got older and more mature, then it was just like, well, what if I feel sick and it's dark, it's laid out, and those kind of elements from that one moment, if a couple of those start piecing together, it's like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen again. Oh, I hope it doesn't happen again. And it starts to like creep up on you. It's like,
and then it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy.
And you start you're trying to calm yourself down, and so that's kind of what I struggled with for a long time with the pastors, and prayed about it, and I had to work through it. And now I can look back and I can empathize with people that are going through those different things, and also I feel confident knowing all the times that I've gotten through it.
What was the way through?
It was a lot of it was just it was repetition almost, like knowing each time I got through it and then praying through it and keep going through it. It didn't just like cure itself right away like you'd want. It was, for me, it was just over time, little by little, getting through it, like day at a time, day at a time, day at a time.
And so you were able to recollect, hey, you got through this thing. It's like, okay, I've done this once. This isn't as unfamiliar as it used to be. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the pain formula. It's kind of like you need it, and then you get to share it with others. You get to heal others with it, but it also helps you have the one thing you can only get by age is perspective. I have enough stories to juxtapose and go, I've done this. No, I'm okay with that. Oh, I've been that before. You get older, you start knowing how to choose friends differently because you know what the red flags are, but you don't know when you're 18.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know anything.
Yeah.
And it costs you dearly, and hopefully you survive it. Well, we were talking about the arts. We were talking about acting. So you've been in some very successful faith-based films. I hate to use the term faith-based films, but they are. They're designed for faith-based people. They're designed, which is
genre.
Christian.
There's certain things that, if it's a Christian movie, there's certain things you're expecting going into it.
Right.
Just like if you're going to see a horror film, you're expecting a few jump scares.
Yeah, exactly.
A romance, you want some entanglement at the end.
Interesting way to explore it as a genre category. True, but it still seems different. There's still something different. And I've been in, 20 faith-based films, I guess, over the years.
What seems different to you?
Okay, so this is what I wanted to ask you about from your perspective. You're a younger guy, too, and you've been in some successful, whatever that means, if they made money, or at least they had some notoriety, right? You were in, give your body of work. You were
the most notable ones, talk about successes, would be Courageous being number one, maybe Courageous Legacy that came out last year. War Room, I did small scenes in other big movies that Kenner Brothers have done, but then the standalones, I'm Not Ashamed, did pretty well in theaters and went around.
And who produced that?
That was technically, who was the original producer on it? Pureflix released that one.
Okay.
And then Cream of the Crop came out, and then because of Grassi had a theatrical release, it did pretty well with Mariah Peters for King and Country's wife, and then we're involved with that. So those are the movies that people most recognize me from, be those.
And not Rumors of Wars?
Rumors of War, not something people stop me on the street for. And then the first Vindication, the series that's on Amazon Prime now. I was the original episode. It was supposed to be a short film, and it performed so well. They're like, well, where's episode 2? And then now they're doing a series, and unfortunately my character is a one-off, even though I was the star of the first one.
That sucks. Well, okay, so you've been in these things. I've been in numerous ones. None of them really did that great. Some of them are good movies, actually.
Yeah.
But talking to numerous Christian directors, numerous Christian producers, it's always the same story. We all have the same story. Why can't we tell the stories we really want to tell? Why can't we have the creativity and the freedom to get dangerous a little bit? Because a beautiful story has to, for example, we want to talk about redemption in Christian films. And the story of Christianity, which is the truth of humanity, the Judeo-Christian ethic found in this 1,500-year-old book that took 1,500 years to write, is the story. It's the human experience. And so every story essentially is coming out of the Bible. It's this hero and the villain and the redemption and the evil and the conquering. It's
even the most inspiring moments of movies that have to happen like every time. It even happened. I remember seeing it in the movie Venom, where the hero is being outmatched. You think he's going to lose, and he sacrificed himself.
Right.
He falls in the water, and then he's like. Then he comes back and he's like reborn, and then he ends up killing the guy. It's always like the resurrection story. You have to do like that. Is just everything that's good in a movie is just taken from the Bible and made repurposed.
It's the Judeo-Christian story, the ultimate story, the foundational story for the West. It is. Period.
Then another people that watch. If you go back and rewatch Avengers, the Infinity War, which is the best one of the series, I thought. At the most pivotal moment, finally, Thor, who is basically the Christ character in this movie, when he actually has to put himself on the ark thing that with the sunlight coming through and has to sacrifice himself to get the axe to save mankind, and he resurrected. You have every single time that is the moment where you're like, oh, on the edge of your seat because your soul wants it. You're drawn to that because this is what Jesus did for us too.
Right.
It's just so funny when seeing it replayed out with these Hollywood movies.
Well, yes, and there's this posing, a blocking pose that's very common in numerous films of a crucifixion. Where the hero dies and he's sort of in this almost cross pose. I mean, it's all metaphor or allegory to Christianity because
all the good ones.
Yeah, of course. But then we get to the Christian movies, and suddenly we don't get to add the good ones because oftentimes, and I know that might sound harsh to you because you've actually been in some successful ones, but it does seem what I've noticed, what I've seen. Is oftentimes people who will go only to Christian movies are believers. They're Christian. They want to bring their family. They got 12 kids. They're homeschoolers.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to watch that.
And that's what they want. And God bless them.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just like praise and worship music. Nobody in the world that has any idea what this means, praise and worship music, except for Christians, because it's for us. There's no contemporary style of music that is similar to where you go, oh, he's doing like the Beatles. No, it's some other thing designed to prepare you to worship God. So it's a very specific type of music, like hymns used to be.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a genre. Christians are going to see it. Their point of view is going to be dignified. Their faith is going to be dignified. It's going to tell the story they think is true and is the most important and needs to be told. Yes, God bless America. But,
sometimes.
Yeah, how do you tell the story of redemption if you don't show sin? How do you show repentance if you can't show anarchy or poor choices? How do you show? I remember here's to me is the perfect example. The most successful faith-based films, Christian-based films of all time, were not made by Christians. The most successful, probably, if you really look at it, I can't say.
Mel Gibson's kind of like coming back, hopefully. But
yes, okay, and that was incredibly successful financially.
Well, Clint Eastwood, though, with American Sniper, I'm pretty sure he's a Christian guy, but
he certainly has conservative values for sure.
Yeah.
But let's take 81. The best picture was Chariots of Fire.
Yeah,
that was the best picture. I don't know that any other faith-based film ever won Best Picture except for Ten Commandments.
I think Samson and Delilah won in like 52 or something crazy. Yeah.
What about the Ten Commandments?
I bet that one. I think you're right. I think
Ben-Hur maybe.
Well, that was back when. That was also back when there were some moral standards as far as what was able to be broadcast, and the standards objectively have to be Christianity, and also there was just more. Christians controlled Hollywood a lot more, or like that ethos controlled Hollywood a lot more. I don't know if it was because they weren't allowed to put these kind of things on there. You remember, like, the first R-rated movie that went out with The Midnight Cowboy was, like, 1969. It wasn't even, by today's standards, would be, like, a PG movie. Like, it's not, you couldn't really do any bad movies until the 60s, late 60s, 70s, 80s, that kind of period. So back then, you had to create great pieces of art within the restraints of a Judeo-Christian society. Yeah. And so you have these artists like, well, we can't do this, and we have to tell, like, these really good, powerful stories. And so maybe that's why they were able to do that more back then, and now it's not. I know one thing that holds us back today is the gatekeepers now don't often want a lot of the Christian messages out, like traditional gatekeepers, like WB or wherever, or whoever's going to be back now. Like they don't want to put the Christian message out. That's a problem. The other thing about it would be to a lot of times the movies that do secretly be successful, they kind of just have to sneak it in.
Yeah,
like the ones that they'll probably have like a good. It's always like we even like a Maverick, for instance. Like there's nothing bad. Like there's a lot of great Christian messages in it, things to do. Yeah. So those we had to sneak it in almost if it is successful.
Well, I think though that, and this is a problem, is that and as artists we think differently than folks, and we're a little bit more open, I think, to nuance and sophistication and a little bit more dangerous explorations, because we know that that's what's going to inspire us emotionally as a human. Now, if I came to you and said, I got a great faith-based film, this guy is a voyeur. He's watching women take showers naked, the whole thing. And he has sex with this woman, kills her husband. It's amazing. Great faith-based film. You're going to go,
King David?
Yeah, but that's the point. That's the point.
Yes,
the average faith-based film would say, how dare you even bring that up? That's ridiculous. And I'll say, not only is that story, God Almighty said, this story is so important, I will immortalize it and give you the details. Now, am I saying, then we need nudity in faith-based film? No, what I'm getting at is, the Bible is filled with incest, having sex with your father to have the it has murder, it has rape, it has.
It's definitely rated R. If you made the movie of the Bible, it'd be rated R.
Yes,
I made that point as well. And it's I don't know the exact answer to this, but it is, because I always say, like, you can have R be for ridiculous, or it could be just like real and grounded. And it's like, what is the line that you set for yourself that you can't cross to have like a good Christian message in the story? And there, who was the guy that wrote Braveheart? I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Oh yes.
So there's a great interview that I read on him where he was even explaining that Braveheart is a Christian movie. Like, this is supposed to be a Christian movie, but it's wrapped up in the blood and gore and sex, just like but that message, the overall.
You mean like the Passion,
of the Spirit.
Because the same thing. See, there's the same, and Gibson felt like that was the crucial piece to that puzzle. I want you to see what it looks like to be scourged. I want you to understand what it costs, this Christ, so that you would have to deal with it. And it was in your face, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't a faith-based typical film. I mean, you wouldn't show a 5-year-old that. No. And yet, we'll tell that story in his 5-year-old Sunday school class. Jesus died on the cross for your sins.
Yeah, but I mean, you do read some of the verses too about loving your wife, or like the certain stories about if they have a question about incest, or what does the Bible say about sex here, or whatever. You're not going to have like the in-depth discussion with your child until they're ready for like the birds and the bees talks, and you'll probably get into the details. And that's why I think certain movies are for certain people at certain times in their life, or certain demographics of people. Like, this is going to be a kids movie, a teen movie, the adult movie. And I think Christians, what they do a bad job of is, I think kind of what you're getting at is that when we try to do something in the arts that is like real and it's a great movie and a message, they'll just like try to like, how dare this person? He's not a believer. He had two people kiss, or like they hit each other, or there was the lead guy was so flawed. Which, if your lead guy is Christ, he's perfect. It's a horrible movie. You can't do that. You leak her. But
that's what I'm saying. There's no human there.
Yes, exactly.
Because humans that's who we are. We're sinners. We're flawed. We're failures. When people come to me and write on my threads because of my comedy, all you Christians are all hypocrites. You guys are all judgmental, blah blah. And I say, don't you understand? A, you're right. B, it's not because we're hypocrites. It's because we're consistent. And C, you've just proven Christianity's point. That's exactly true. In spite of that, I'm saved. That's why he's given you grace. It's amazing grace for a reason, because you don't deserve it. So you don't understand that the stories aren't for everybody at every age. I've seen this in my comedy. I'm performing in church, and they got their 5-year-olds. Like, maybe they couldn't get a babysitter, but I'm thinking, comedy isn't designed for children. I mean, this is adult time for us to get sophisticated for a second. Let me talk about hard issues in culture. That's what comedy does great. I'm always been the outlier in Christian comedy. I've always been the maverick. I've always been the dangerous one, because I use Christian worldview as social commentary, and I was not of the ilk of the Jim Gaffikins or the Brian Regans. Wonderful, wonderful comics. I was the Chappelles and the Richard Pryors, I felt like there was something else I wanted to say that was more important, and God was using comedy simply as the delivery system for what I wanted to do. Well, that's what film can do better than anything, and I wanted to say this because I keep forgetting to say it, but I wanted to give you an example. The Blind Side wasn't written by a Christian, wasn't produced by, at least that I know of. I mean, maybe they were, but anyways, it wasn't for the Christian audience. Christian family did a beautiful Christian thing, and it won Sandra Bullock an Oscar, I believe. And of course, Christians immediately jump on. That's one of our stories. That's our history. We are not allowed to do it. And when that came out in DVD and went into Lifeway, someone complained that in it was either a guy was drinking a beer or he had a gun, something like that.
Yeah.
And they pulled the movie
from Lifeway.
Now this is a Southern Baptist, place, so maybe but my point was somebody had decided that to show a sinner sinning is asking too much. Now, my friend, if that's the myopic vision of what it means to be a Christian in the arts, then no wonder they don't take us seriously. Because that's absurd.
That is bad. I didn't hear that story. That hurts me.
So, okay, and that was years back. And who knows? Maybe things have changed. I don't know. But the brick and mortar Christian stores are kind of vanishing anyways. But my point was, as a Christian, as an actor, as an artist who's serious about your faith, you're not taking it frivolously. You're not some kind of progressive guy. You're not some kind of, at all. And you're not someone who believes that all bets are off, or there's no limitations or expectations of boundaries for the arts and as believers. But I'm not afraid if a guy said damn it or shoots. I feel like, yes, there's some boundaries. I don't believe you frankly ever need to show nudity, only because I think it's gratuitous. A man and a woman who are married and are having a sex is a beautiful, sacred, holy thing that God has ordained, but I don't bring my neighbors in to watch. So my point is that I don't think, and of course during the code era of Hollywood, you couldn't show that stuff. Well, I didn't need it. If I sweep her up on my feet and walk in and shut the bedroom door, I know what's going on. I don't need to see it.
I've written that into some scripts too, like this. It's all about like the kind of the lead up in the presentation of the act, not the act once it happens. That is really important. And I'm curious just to get back to the barriers too, because I know you have guidelines. You have barriers in your comedy too. Like you don't swear in your comedy.
Don't swear.
So there's certain things you will not do on stage, even though like you give.
That's personal choice based on my faith. Not everybody agrees with that. And let's get back to the genre that you're more familiar with. Denzel Washington, who's a Christian and is a brilliant actor, has no problem cursing. Effing this, mother effing that. He does not care, will not do a sex scene.
I didn't know that.
Jim Caviezel, who I met, who played Jesus. Funny story, when I met him, I was performing comedy for him, and he was friends with them. This was way back years before The Passion, and I was doing and one of my comedy bits was about Catholics and how Catholics see Mary everywhere, but I said but Protestants see Satan everywhere, and they got nervous because he's a real Catholic. Jim Caviezel was Catholic as it gets, and he was laughing and joking. Later on, I found him. It was actually we were staying in a casino, was where they put us up. And I saw the guy, and I walked over to him, and I said, hey, and I said, we're talking for a guy. I said, so they say you're an actor. I apologize. I don't recognize you. Now, again, this was prior to some of the stuff he'd done. He said, no, it's no problem. He said, so have you been in anything coming on? I'm just, he goes, well, there's a movie coming up called Count of Monte Cristo. I said, oh, that's great. I said, who's the lead? Because I had no idea. And he goes, me. And I go,
yeah.
Oh, so you're like a real...
Oh, he's such a stud.
And he is. And so, it was funny but he has a clause. I will not do nudity. I don't think he'll even kiss a woman, I think.
Really?
And yet, so Catholics are funny that way. They're real specific about when it comes to the physical stuff, but they have no problem with the language or violence. Okay, so how does one, as a Christian, how do you draw that line as to what you will allow yourself to do in a film?
Prayer. Like, I know, because I don't know what I've heard great arguments on both sides. Like, you can't do anything at all because, it's just you are a hell-performing being, your spirit in this body, and you're doing these things.
Right.
Even if you're just doing it to just pretend to make a point. And then also, like, the language thing, too, in the Bible, like, saying the F word or whatever, like, as far as the exact phrase in the Bible, something like foolish language or condemning language or something like that, where, like, if I was to tell you you're a worthless person, you never amount to anything, like that, those words could potentially destroy someone's life. Me saying the S word is not going to affect literally anybody. Like, those kind of things that I think we've just kind of put on religion and Christianity as a way, like, that's me personally as an actor, like, because I don't want to, but I know people do feel certain ways about those words, so that's why I won't do it.
But so you won't say curse words only, or scatological terms or whatever, because you feel like you are representing a group of folks who are fans of yours who you believe would be turned off by it.
Well, a lot of times there's a verse in the Bible too, like, it's not a sin to drink, but if you cause someone to stumble, like, I would never go into an alcoholic's house and be like, all right, let's pop open this bottle. There's just a time and place for certain things, and so, like, for me personally, I would swear in the right scenes if it earned it, if I was playing a character where it's justified and it doesn't make any sense not to. It's so annoying to put those restraints, because even when you're acting, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I would not say this or do this.
Yeah.
So if it was the right scene, the right thing, I would do that. The nudity thing, I've turned down roles for nudity stuff. Like, I don't feel like there's any. Now, if there was a role that, if I was nudity for a reason, not to just, like, have sex with somebody, like, maybe. Yeah. Like, if I was being tortured or whatever, like, there'd be a.
Well, and I've heard it claimed about Schindler's List, where he was trying to show the humiliation of being naked and going to a death camp and walking into a gas chamber, and still you could go, well, yeah, but they're naked and I don't know, and I think what he was trying to say was, this happened. This is the story. It looks like that. It should make you feel the way you're feeling. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yep. Nevertheless, if you were one of those guys, you're naked sitting around there, and then you got to go back to church and have the people say, that's really enough. So where is the truth?
I think that the truth has just got to be with Jesus, and he's got to tell you, because, I mean, he could tell you to leave your wife and marry a prostitute, and she's not in the Bible. Like, you better be sure that he's saying it. But, I mean, like, for me, I know people that just pretend like. Here's a great example. So I was shooting a movie called Vindication, or Virtuous, in Atlanta, and this was a really Christian community, and it was a Christian project. Some of the higher ups were, but the people that were volunteering, they were awesome, real religious Christian people, and I love hanging out with the extras, the background, because they make the movie feel like a film, like it's real. When you have the background people, and it's not just like two people in a room, it's like empty. It's like, it doesn't work. So I love talking to people. And they were talking about, they were basically just bragging how I would never do this. I'm like so good here. It was almost like who's the most religious in the group. They were all talking about like what they do on stage, what they don't do, what they don't do, what they don't do. And then one of the girls was kind of quiet, and she was awesome helping out and talking. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she's like, I actually work on the Originals down in New Orleans. And the Originals is that Vampire Diaries spinoff with a lot of witchcraft, a lot of like hookups, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, how was that? And she's like, it's been amazing. Like I'm the body double for the lead girl, so I get to interact with all the people, and I'm down there, and it's been awesome because people have come up to me and they're like, hey, like, everyone else is just out, drinking and partying, doing this crazy stuff, and like you're like so different. Like what is it about you? And she's like, oh, I'm a Christian. I go to this church. We have this great event coming up, and people were starting to be witness to and starting to hear about Christ and going to these events from her just being there in these projects around these people, and everyone else was just like, oh my gosh, I'm such a better person here on set. I don't do this. I would never be on a project that is like this. And like, and you had this girl out there like living out the gospel down there in New Orleans. Probably done more for the kingdom than any of these people in the room.
She was a body double as a stand-in, or I mean, because sometimes body doubles are or like the naked one.
No, as far as I know, she was the person that was like had to be there for the right height. Camera. She was that job with the girl. Standing. So body double. So that it was, and so then it really put a question into me too. It's just like, well, it depends on where Jesus calls you to go and what He wants you to do. As long as if your heart is kingdom focused, and Jesus is like, I need you to go beat out this role, and maybe you do make just from you being there, like, okay, maybe He doesn't feel comfortable doing this scene, maybe we'll change it, or maybe this will happen, or I have no idea what the Lord will work out. But I don't want to put and that's for me personally, because I hear Kurt's a great guy too. I love Kurt Cameron to death, and he's like, I'm going to be this guy's going to walk it out, and I love that. But it's like, I think there are places for everyone to be, and not everyone's going to be doing the exact same thing. That's like if someone's called to, live a certain lifestyle, and not everyone can be a missionary. Like some people have to go make the money to go fund the missions and stuff like too.
Well, when I talked to you about danger as an actor, because you are kind of putting yourself out there, and it is your body doing whatever, saying whatever it is. I mean, you're here, and your spirit follows you where you go. And when I was in class, there were a couple times when I had scenes with girls, and I was kissing them and doing. I remember thinking to myself, now I'm married. And I remember thinking to myself, but I'm an actor. I mean, if I'm going to be an actor, this is probably going to be part of the game once in a while. My wife was okay. She understood, so it wasn't like I was not telling her or whatever. But I did a couple scenes, not every scene, but it was a few with girls and kissing them and so forth. And I felt like I told myself, I need to know what my boundaries are. I need to kind of see what's out there and how I feel so I can kind of figure this out, because I'm going to have to know what I'm going to be able to do, or I can't be an actor because they're going to just assume you'll do whatever they tell you to do. I'm going to have to know what my line is. And I remember doing a scene with a girl. It was pretty intense. It was funny, but it was physical.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, oh, and here's where it happened. So I got a role in a student film, UCLA student film.
Oh boy!
And they wanted me to play this heckler as a heckler in a comedy club of all things, and I was the heckler. And I was just trying to get film work and get in front of the camera. So you're taking whatever you can get because you want to get the experience. Well, they had the F word. I said, yeah, we're talking about you effing this or whatever. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that's what the guy would say if he was there. He's just in the comedy club. That's how they talk. It's not me. It's that guy.
Yeah.
And then as we're getting ready it's getting close to the shoot and it's on location, I remember thinking to myself, Brad, you've made a reputation as a comic in nightclubs, in comedy, in the best clubs in the country, showing you can be funny and get the best laughs as like everybody else and not have to use one curse word. You've proven that. And that was kind of what you were trying to show, that creativity is funnier than crude. And you've tried to make that point, and you've done it. And you have fans who trust you because of that. So, in some ways, are you compromising that concept by doing this thing, which is felt a little gratuitous, right?
Yes.
So now I'm in a dilemma, because I'm driving to the set of this thing, and I told the guy, you feel like the guy's kind of stuck because he said I'll do the gig. And I was at first didn't have a qualm about it, and then it was only as I got closer I realized you're attached to this, and it's movies, and it's a new world. Whatever you've ever filmed will exist forever out in the internet. Forever, it's out there. I went to the director, and I said, I got an idea. When the guy says that, what if you said this instead? And I was trying to kind of use as an actor, I've really tried to break this character down, and I think he might say, he goes, oh, that's interesting. All right, well, let's shoot both. So I didn't just get off the hook, he shot both. And so I did it. Now, it's a student film. Nobody's ever seen it, more than likely. It's probably out there
People on the internet now.
Yeah. And they can find it, I guess, if it's out there.
Maybe it was digitized.
But it was tiny. Okay. But it taught me a lesson. And here's what I learned. It was how I found my boundaries. Mm-hmm. Was I said to myself, I don't know that it's so much that I would refuse a role because of a particular language. I don't know that I would refuse it because of a particular character that I played. I realized what I really needs to make sense to me is, do I believe in the story this is telling? And when I looked at the script now with the size of a Christian again, and trying to be that guy, I go, I don't like the story. It's just crude. It doesn't have really any redemption. It's kind of just unsophisticated as any UCLA guy who's thinking, oh, I'm Steven, I'm Stanley Kubrick because I'm 18 making my first movie. And I realized I don't like this story. I don't want to be associated with the story. And that was, to me, my guiding post. If I believe in the story, because it redeems, the winner is the good man. The evil dies. It is destroyed. There is beauty in this. There's beauty from ashes. Something. That's what I'm going to. If that story I think matters and should exist, then whatever that comes with that guy, so be it. I wouldn't do nudity. I still wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But just because I just don't ever see that as anything but gratuitous for the most part. But that was how I had to find my answer. And meanwhile, I started doing faith-based films. I never had to face it.
Yeah, that's great about the genre, too. It's like it's so many times you don't... Sometimes I've turned down even faith-based projects, though, if I think the theology is totally whack, or if I think they're just trying to, like, make a buck off of Christians. And
yeah.
So I have turned down some for that as well. But yeah, the nudity one is... Because it was so, like, for me personally, like I say like, oh, I would swear on camera. I would maybe potentially, not in a sex scene, obviously, but for certain purposes would. It's like, but I have not done it yet. I was just like, I could potentially do that if it was, if the story was warranted. Like, there's so many stories in the Bible that it would be a really graphic movie if you were going to show it properly. And then as far as, I mean, it's so tough. There's not just like a one answer thing.
It isn't, because I could say to you, I'm playing Adam and Eve, and if it was shot in a way that was kind of artistic and not just some blatant thing, I could say that. But then I'd have to say, but wait a minute, but you're showing a pure Adam and Eve prior to sin, and now it's seen strictly as more sensual. So in some ways it cancels itself. See what I'm saying? So it isn't a simple thing to do. But there's lots of people out there who are believers. Not everybody watches my show. I have atheists. I don't know why. I got atheists that like my show. I've got people from all over the world that watch this show, but mainly Americans and probably mainly Christians and conservatives. And they're young, some of them, and they want to be in the arts, and they feel like, well, this ain't for me. I guess if you're a Jesus guy, man, we don't get to do that, or we have to make our faith-based films, and they were going to be lower quality, and they're never going to be funded properly, and they're not going to have the best actors, and they're never going to have the best stories. But at least we're doing it for Jesus, and I don't believe that. I believe that those few Christians who said, I want to be the best I can be in the best films I can make, have made a difference and do matter. So to those folks, to those kids, since you've kind of are somebody they can look at and go, I've seen his, I love what he's doing, but I don't know what to do, or my parents are against this, because I'm talking about the Christian kids that really struggle with compromise or feeling as though this isn't even a world they're allowed to explore. What would you tell them?
The number one thing that everyone that's trying to get into an industry that's competitive is you just have to do it. And you have to. Jeremy Boring with the Daily Wire, which is I'm producing the Michael Knowles show now, which has been awesome. It's his thing. He doesn't care about what your credentials are. He doesn't. Like, if you went to some fancy college, I literally, when I was meeting with him for the first time, I was like, dude, you shouldn't hire me. Like, I didn't go to, there's 150 dudes that just came out of film school over here. If you want to, like, have them produce it, it's fine. This is my background. This is what I've actually done. I produced, like, all these different things and different movies and these whatever. And he liked that and gave me the job. And I think a lot of times for Christians especially, if you're coming from a hard area, if your parents are not encouraging you and you just choose to do it anyway, that in and of itself gives you an extra leg up on everyone that's trying to make it, because you've already gone through a difficult situation to even get in the ring in the first place. And that once you do that, then you get as much training as possible, and you get in front of the camera as much as possible. You start the Kennick brothers didn't go to film school. They did the first film. They bought a camera and then just read the manual and started just like working it. They started just doing it and making projects and got better. There are so many people that had the thought or the wish that have not taken the first step. It's literally just making it happen. And if you really want to become an actor or a writer, you need to study it like it's your job. Like, get into it, get obsessed with it. Yeah. Put yourself in those awkward situations. Go to those club rooms, like, work through it. Go through the bombing. Go through running through these scenes with your friends or a small local acting community or a play or whatever. Find some acting coach bomb in those audition things, do a terrible scene, pull yourself back together, do it again the next week, and keep working it out. It's just doing it and making it happen is the hardest thing. Finish that first script. It's going to be terrible, whatever. Throw it away, do the next one. Like, you just have to get in the ring and start fighting. Like, a lot of Christians just don't have the fight, and you think it's going to be handed to you because grace is given to all of us so easily. You just ask for it and you have salvation, but in life sometimes we think it's going to be that easy, like God's just going to give me this without putting in the effort. And that's my biggest thing, encouragement to anyone that wants to get into any field of entertainment, is to just do it. Get out there, make something happen, and the fruits of your labor, the Lord will bring to fruition for you if it's meant to be.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that one of the things that sometimes hasn't been stressed in the body is meritocracy, the sense that you need to earn it. And I've said this before to people. I said, if I was out in the congregation, we were singing praise and worship, and I'm not a very good singer, let's say, and I suck at it, and I'm trying, and everybody's like, oh, boy, this guy's a terrible singer. Shame on them. He's just trying to praise God. He never said he was a singer. But if I leave the pew, and I walk up on that pulpit, and I turn around, I put my mic and say, I'm going to bless you with my gift from God. You should have the gift. Because it's disgraceful to dishonor God by claiming something that he does give some folks and represent his name in anything less than the most stellar, professional. You shouldn't try as a Christian performer to get as good as the world so they take notice. You should create, Steve Martin, the comic said, get so good they can't ignore you. You should create a world where the secular people look at you and go, what the heck are you? You are amazing. Be the standard. Not try to raise it up. And also, there's this idea in the Christian ethic that sometimes your witness is your craft. Sometimes, for those of you who think, I feel like I'm supposed to be in ministry, why isn't ministry being great as an actor? Why isn't that ministry, like you just mentioned, a girl who said, my ministry is to be in this world amongst these sinners, because you know who needs some medicine? The sick people. Now, one other thing, one caveat. Make sure you have the maturity and the prayer and the support, because the world of acting, these are some of the most hedonistic, some of the most, there are
insecure,
narcissistic, all bets are off, no morality, do whatever you want. It is, if you are weak in that realm, especially sex, you may not want to get into that world, because that world is very open. Now, maybe not so much in the faith-based film, though, not that it couldn't happen there. But you go into the secular world, that's going to be a very hedonistic world, and you better know that you are okay and have the strength to endure that, because you're going to be pretty much alone, and they're not going to understand you. But if you get a girl like that, good for her.
Yeah, if you think about it, everything really should be our ministry. Our job, like, we should be doing it as if we're doing it for the Lord, and influences the people around us. And if you're an actor, like, that's your job, and you should be always conscious of that. Like, getting up, you still be going through your routine, hopefully getting the word, praying through things, going to church. So, yeah, I mean, you just gotta take it seriously.
Yeah, do the work. I was in class. I did the same thing. It's like, learn it. I remember I'd go out and to read for things, and I never even got a call back. And I used to start thinking, well, maybe I'm no good at this thing. And I realized, I said, Brad, you are in Hollywood, California. You are amongst the best actors in the world. You can't go up once a month and read and compete with these people. Any more than they can go do one open mic and think they can do comedy. Yeah. This is a hard craft, and it demands discipline. So I told my wife, I'm going to give it a year. I'm going to go up. I'm going to get in class. I went twice a week. I was in Orange County, so I had to drive up to L.A. twice a week. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take every audition. I'm going to give myself a year. If I don't get a call back, I'm going to say, it's all right. I'm a comic. I'm good at that. I know I can do that. But I have to at least give myself a chance, and I can't compete if I don't do the work that these people are doing.
Yeah.
And it was through that, and I'm not going to get into the story because we're getting late, but it was through that.
I'll be here all night, man. Huh? So I'll be here all night.
Well, okay. All right. Well, then, okay, I'll tell the story.
I don't know how long your podcast is.
No, it doesn't matter. It's freeform.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, frankly, keep you in case you thought you. But in the end, folks, if you are a believer, you do have an obligation to represent God in all your work, and even if that means you are a mechanic or a plumber, it doesn't matter. Be great at that. Be the best at that. Be the most loyal. Be the most on time. Be the one that everybody wants, because I don't know what this dude is, but he's the best I've ever seen. That's your witness. That's what's expected. We are in a time in America where Christianity is demeaned, ridiculed, and hated. And this is part of the game of being a believer. It costs you something. And for the first time in American history, it's costing us something. Well, it's supposed to. It's going to make you strong. It's going to make you vibrant. It's going to be a sacred experience. And it's going to be hard because we're moving into a new season. But I believe in a third great awakening, and I'm going to go down fighting like a man, and I'm going to use whatever my gifts and skills are to represent God the best I can until it's time for me to go home. And then I don't have to sweat it anymore. Remember, political correctness has been the destruction of America. It is cultural Marxism. It's despicable. And the greatest compliment somebody can tell you is you're not politically correct, because that means you're a free thinker and you are open to free thought and the liberties that come with being a free nation. So, PC free is liberty. Be PC free. This is God's comic, Brad Stine, and Brad Stine Has Issues. Simply saying this: all I'm doing is putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.